Welcome everybody to the GM's Chair. It's a brand new hockey podcast here on the YouTube, and you guys might recognize me from some other channel. My name is Sam, and I am the host of the Rush Hockey Podcast, and I am joined and honored to be joined by my co-host, Reid. We're going to be talking about the latest goals, highlights, trades, standings, drafts, anything hockey related. So I hope you guys are ready. We're going to have some conversations that might be catered to you, might have some conversations you agree with. But we are both diehard fans, as you can see. I might be representing one team, Reid might be representing another team. Who knows? We could be switching teams by the end of the season. But we're going to be doing a lot of in-depth analysis of hockey and all the teams that are in the league. And you know what? We're also going to play a little bit of the GM's position, okay? So this is all fan content. Don't take it seriously. If you guys take it seriously and you want to troll, feel free to drop it in the comments. But without further ado, let me introduce you to Reid. Reid, how are you doing? Welcome in.
I'm doing lovely today. Lovely.
You're doing
Thank
great.
you for having me, and thank you for starting the podcast with me.
I'm excited to have you. We're going to be going on this brand new journey of hockey. Like when I first started, even covering hockey, looking at hockey, and then you jumped in and you started telling me about your passion and also your love for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I noticed you're wearing a Columbus Blue Jackets outfit there, or the jersey,
Yes,
I should
sir.
say. I was very, very much intrigued to get to know you, and the fact that you know a lot of things about hockey and you have a huge extensive knowledge when it comes to hockey. I think it's going to be a pleasure for not only me, but for the audience that's going to be watching.
Pleasure's all mine.
All right, so we got a couple things on the docket today. First and foremost, we've got the free agency preview, or review, I guess I should say. It's free agency kind of opened up July 1st. There was a lot of movement. There's a lot of signings, new faces in new places, and some places have guys who are wearing jerseys that I never thought would even be possible. So let's go ahead and get started with that. What team would you like to start off with first?
I would like personally to start off with Anaheim. I think
Okay.
that the Trevor Zegras deal is very noteworthy. Trevor signed recently a 3-year, $17.25 million contract, which is $5.75 a year.
Yep.
I think that it might be a bit much for his play. I think that it holds him in Anaheim for the next 3 years, I think.
And you and I, we discussed this a little bit off camera, and we were kind of wondering what it was that warranted Trevor Zegras to get that 5.75. Is it name base only? Is it skill? Because I've looked at some of his stats, and I'm not going to lie to you, it doesn't add up. It doesn't look like he would be a $5 to $6 million player. Is Anaheim paying for maybe future production?
I think that they're paying mainly because of his name. I don't see the stats to back it up. Just like you don't, as we spoke earlier about it, I think that he's really only known for his Michigans and yes, his puck handling, but I don't see, he's not like a 100-point scorer. He's not somebody who's doing really good on defense. His plus or minus is, I believe, negative. So it's, to me, I don't really see it as we have to insure this guy because his stats are extreme. I think it's more, we have to insure him because of I would say like a popularity signing.
Right. Okay. I mean, I can totally agree with that. I mean, we've had discussions of maybe Zegras maybe going to another team or whatnot. So I was actually very surprised when you mentioned that he was going to get 5.75. If it was me personally, Trevor Zegras, I think he's a talented player. So I 110% agree with you. He's a talented player, but I probably would have looked to lock him up maybe in the $3.5 to $4 million range. I know there's a lot of people that are going to be in the chat that disagree with that. I'm looking at you, Anaheim fans. But frankly speaking, based off of his numbers, he wasn't producing. Now, I can't fault him for having the season, well, the lack of the season that he had. He was injured. I get that. But when I look at that deal, I'm thinking Anaheim is paying for the future prospect because we'll get into it a little bit later about the projections of where, he's going to fit in on that lineup. But I don't see him as a first line player in comparison to other players across the league. I do believe he's a little bit undersized. Yeah, it's hard for me to see him get that top line money when he's not going to be on a top line.
Exactly. And I don't think that he's had a full healthy season since coming into the league, unless he did his rookie season.
Right.
I just don't see 5 point. I just don't see that. The 5 point.
Well, we're going to see how it ages. We've got a few years to see how that contract ages.
5.75. My bad.
Yeah.
And me personally, I don't see paying somebody 5.75 when they're not going to be your top person, because I think, personally speaking, I think Leo Carlsson is going to take that first line spot. I
Yep.
don't think that Trevor is going to be able to compete with him. Leo Carlsson has him in size, he has him in skill, and he has him in age.
Yeah, there's a few other players on that roster that I think definitely beat Zegras. Let's look at McTavish. McTavish definitely beats him. Carlson definitely beats him. Right? I'm
Yep.
thinking, who else am I thinking out there? On their, it's a right winger. Jeez, forgive me, I'm forgetting it right now.
Frank Petrano.
Vetrano, right? I believe that all three of those players are better than Zegras.
I do as
So
well.
paying him $5 million to be on the second line, or almost $6 million to be on the second line. Now, I say this take it with a grain of salt, because yes, the Edmonton Oilers and a few other teams have $5 million players that are on their second line. Some even have $6 million players on their third line. I get that, but comparison wise and stat wise, and just the size and the shape of the player, it's far better, in my
Well,
opinion.
so if you want to compare somebody like Edmonton to Anaheim with them having more expensive players deeper into their lines, you also have to think that Anaheim is a smaller market.
Yeah.
So 5.75 is a lot for a smaller market, especially considering that. So Edmonton has Connor McDavid, obviously, Zach Hyman, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on their first line. Leon Draisaitl, I think, deserves every bit of, I would say 10. I think his performance in the Stanley Cup is easily deserving. I think that their play warrants that $10 million price tag. I do not think that Trevor, because I don't think his play warrants the price tag that he's got. Unless you're thinking that Trevor is going to take you to the Stanley Cup Finals in the next 3 years, which behind that team, I don't personally see it.
I don't see it.
I don't think he's worth that.
You remember the old school Anaheim Ducks? I mean, where would Trevor Zegras fit with Scott Niedermayer on the team, Chris Pronger on the team, Ryan Getzlaf on the team, Ryan Kessler on the team, Corey Perry on the team? Like, he's a great player. I'm not going to discredit him, but I agree with you. He's not going to be that guy that leads this team to a championship. He's going to
No, and
need
I,
some
I think
assistance.
no, and my thing that I keep going back to is, if somebody like Connor McDavid, who's getting paid considerably more, he can lead you to the cup, but he
Right.
hasn't been able to actually finish the story.
Which he
What makes
will.
you think that Trevor Zegras is going to be your guy that's going to take you to the cup? I
Right.
just don't see that.
I totally agree. And also looking at some of the other guys that Anaheim signed in the offseason, they're pieces because Anaheim's a team that's not really playoff ready. Maybe they could somehow surprise us this year, but based off the agents that they signed, Leeson and Vakinen for 1 year deals, Harkins for 2, Myers for 1, Regenda for 1, Lacombe for 2, Nestorenko for 1. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, I've never heard of any of these players. So
No,
Anaheim,
it almost seems to me like they're paying Trevor for the long run,
long
being
run.
3 years. That these signings are not somebody that's going to tip. That this is not going to get you a cut.
No, it's not. And so Anaheim's kind of still in that rebuilding phase. They're kind
Yeah.
of recouping based off of, like I said, that team that I listed that was so prominent for many, many years. It stings me, by the way, because Anaheim, as an Edmonton Oilers fan, we gave you the cup when we sent Chris Pronger your way. Just saying, just saying. But for that extended period of time, even after the cup, Anaheim has not had that quality on the ice that they've had back then. So Trevor Zegras, I guess they're paying for the future. They're moving forward with it. And we'll see what happens in a couple of years. We'll see how that contract ages. Maybe it gets better. Maybe they can surprise us. I don't know. Moving on to the Boston Bruins. I think they made a pretty good splash. There's some controversy about some of the picks or some of the signings that they made, but the two stellar players that they got in free agency were Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. What are your thoughts on those two coming into Boston, and can they fill a void that Boston's had for a couple of years?
I think Boston is in this weird stage of can't quite get over the hump. And I know that sounds weird coming from coming from a team who just set, not last year, but the year before, just set the all-time points record. It sounds wild. I understand it sounds wild that they can't get over the hump, but they got eliminated in what I believe a second round 2 years ago, first round this year.
Yep.
That's a team as star-studded as they are, as extremely talented as they are. They're not being able to get over that hump. I think that these signings in Zadorov and Elias Lindholm are very, very capable of putting them over the hump. The only thing that I don't like about what Boston did in this offseason with free agencies and with trades and everything is that they got a goalie who I'm a Columbus fan. I do love this guy because he did serve us very well. He set an
Right.
NHL record in Columbus. I love him. Jonas Korpisalo is not as good as Linus Ullmark.
Yep.
He's just
He's not.
not.
And to break up that
with
tandem,
that trade, that tandem, those guys were brothers. There's been many, many, many interviews between those two where they said that they were so close and that they loved each other and that this was where they both needed to be. And I'm sure you remember seeing after game celebrations where Swayman was pointing to Allmark saying that you belong
and they're
here.
doing the hug. Yep, they're doing the hug.
Exactly,
So I mean,
exactly.
that's gonna be
So
it's
for
gonna be different next year to see.
so for that tandem to be broken up to me is just it's criminal. It's criminal, honestly. And Korpisalo, I think he's a career backup. I'm going to be completely honest. I think he's a career backup. I think
Right.
Ottawa overpaid him. I think that Boston lost the trade of Allmark and Korpisalo. I think that was
I
a huge loss for them. And I think this is Zadorov, great. Lindholm, great. You took a real step back in signing Korpisalo.
I mean, I guess having Zadorov there kind of gives them that nasty edge that they haven't really seen since Zdeno Chara. Let's be real. They haven't had that nasty defenseman. They've been kind of playing a little bit more skilled hockey. Elias Lindholm coming in, I think he's going to fit the bill of maybe that second line center or even winger. He can play around. Their power play is obviously going to be a little bit more potent now that you have Lindholm on that. My biggest question is with the Boston Bruins, even with these signings. Yes, they had a few other signings that they added: Jones, Kopecky, Osterley. So they have some depth signings that are in there. Now, we can't deny that their coaching is phenomenal. The Boston's always been able to just be Boston. They're the big bad Bruins. My question moving forward, though, with these signings, and like you said, maybe they might get them over the hump, but does it help with their window of winning a championship? Because we know Pasternak, his contract is going to be up at the end of next year. Yeah, and he's not getting any younger. Brad Marchand, he's definitely not getting younger. Do they have that window still open with these signings, or does it maybe shift focus into a transitional phase for Boston?
So I think that their window is there, but I don't think that it's as long as they would like it to be. I don't think, like you said, Marchand's getting older. Um, I just don't. And I
You
think
don't see it.
Marchand, in my opinion, I think Marchand is kind of the lifeblood of that team right now. Just as
When he
I
leaves,
forgot his name.
it's when he leaves, it's gonna feel weird.
Yeah, well, because I don't see Pasternak staying much longer after Marchand leaves. I think he's right behind him.
I
I just
mean,
think that they're old, and I think that their time, if not this season or next season, they're gonna have to make some bigger moves than that. Probably secure up the goaltending. Probably add, I want to say probably one or two better defensemen. Your second line's okay. Andrew Peak, who was playing in Columbus, he's a notable negative player. I just think that if you're going to make it over the hump with some of the quality of players that are in the league right now, and some of the quality teams that are in the league right now, such as Edmonton, such as, well, I wouldn't say Florida anymore, but such as how Florida was last year, I think that you're going to have to really add some more.
I agree. And I'm going to throw a little fuel to the fire and the flame because I hear a lot of people talking about Leon Draisaitl not getting an extension and he might go somewhere and he was apparently supposed to go to Boston. So Boston, I'd like to return the favor as an Edmonton Oilers fan. When Pasta's contract is over, hey, there might be a chance that he comes and plays with the Edmonton Oilers. Draisaitl might say, you know what, let's just sign a couple years here and oh wait, let's go ahead and recruit Pasta. I'm a dreamer. I'm an Oilers fan. So there you go. That's how rumors get started. Take it as for a grain of salt. Knock yourself out. So now moving on to, I don't know how to. I know I don't like to say anything bad about organizations, but if there was ever an organization that completely misses the ball on retaining their star players or developing their players, it's the Buffalo Sabres. This offseason has been absolutely tumultuous for them. Now, they went ahead and they signed Jason Zucker. They got Gilbert for 1 year, Abe Kubel for 1 year, Bryson for 1 year, Lafferty for 2 year contract. They have 5 brand new players that they signed to two-way deals. Brought in Reimer for 1 year, Yokoharu. I mean, so this team is a very young team. Now, their GM also traded away a young prospect, a viable. He was a top 10 pick not but 2 seasons ago, right? And traded him to the Edmonton Oilers to get Ryan McLeod to shore up, I guess, their third line center position. But Buffalo seems to not be surrounding their young talent of Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin with quality forwards. So what's going on in Buffalo?
So, just like, I don't have a whole lot to say about Buffalo on a personal aspect. I think they're, yeah, I think I would side with you. I don't think that they are really trying to push for a cup here. I think the only real signing that they did was Lukanen,
Yeah,
5 year. I think that that's good. Got to have somebody good in net, and I feel like he is a good goaltender. I just don't see anybody. There's nothing to me about anything that they've done in free agency that I can sit here and say, you know what, they made a step forward.
yeah, and Buffalo Sabres fans will probably disagree with that, and they'll say, "Hey, we got our third line center, and
Well,
we're good." But
if the Sabres fans disagree, please drop it down. I would love to see it.
I would love to see how. Honestly, yeah, I agree. Say if there are any Sabres fans out there, I don't know why you would cheer for the Sabres, but if there are any Sabres fans out there, please let us know what's going on in Buffalo. Because I've also heard rumors that Buffalo's working on an internal cap. So they have a certain cap, within the NHL. For those of you who don't know, all the NHL teams operate within a certain cap, unless you're circumventing the cap. I'm not going to name those teams because I have ill will towards that whole cap circumventation stuff, okay? But there are certain teams that will go over the cap, but otherwise, most teams will operate within a cap. And so, in order to uh, satisfy the needs of having a full roster, there's a minimum cap that most teams need to have. There's also a higher ceiling that teams will reach. So you'll see at the trade deadline, people will they will spend to the cap ceiling or to the maximum amount of cap. Others are just trying to get to the floor. Buffalo, they're close to the floor, and they have an internal cap, from what I'm hearing, that their owner doesn't want to spend a certain amount of money. Maybe this could be a problem as to why Buffalo might not be getting the players that they could be getting, because they have the cap money.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I would agree that maybe it's just a stingy ownership.
And I
And
mean,
and again, if there's any Buffalo Sabres fans out there, all 7 of you guys, please drop it down in the comments and let
seven
me know. I would love to hear if you guys think that your team is going to make it to the Cup.
seven. So we have at least one player. Each player has a faithful follower, and then
Yeah,
maybe a coach or an assistant coach has the other follower, or a GM. Who
I'm
knows?
telling you, it's got to be a great time in that arena. I mean, you got glass seats every time.
Every single time. Now, another one that I don't really know what's going on, but I should know what's going on because they're just 4 hours south of my home city, the Calgary
Oh,
Flames.
this one I'm
Calgary
excited for.
Flames, they have now. Look, I will tell you right now, the Calgary Flames. I love the Battle of Alberta. I'm never going to cheer for the Calgary Flames. Okay, it's just not going to happen. But I love for the Calgary Flames to be good because I want to see that Battle of Alberta. It's not only good for me as an Oilers fan and also for those who are Calgary Flames fan, but it's good for the sport itself to have those divisional or provincial rivals, as you would say. And Calgary, it seems as though this offseason they went ahead and they signed Anthony Mantha. They brought in Bean for 2 years. They have Lomberg, who just won a Stanley Cup with Florida. They have Cooley and Kirkland and Asperot. I mean, so they're kind of recovering from the loss of the last few seasons. Like, they had exoduses of Monahan. They had Hannafin go away. They had or traded away. They had Kachuk walk away. Goudreau. It seems as though Calgary is not admitting that
Branson
they're
walked away.
in. Exactly. It seems as though they're not admitting that they're in that rebuild mode, but they're kind of retooling on the fly. Jonathan Huberdeau didn't have the season that was expected when he was traded for essentially Matthew Tkachuk, right? So
Yeah.
where does Calgary go?
So I like Calgary's. I like their moves that they made this year. Honestly, I really do. I think Anthony Mantha or, or yeah, Anthony Mantha.
Anthony Mantha,
Jake
yeah.
Bean. I've really liked him in Columbus. I just think that his situation was poor,
Right.
very poor. Coming from a Blue Jackets fan, I would say that Columbus's situation, which we will get to, is very, very poor at best. Lomberg,
They're coming up.
I may not like him, and I ask anybody who knows me. Ryan Lomberg drives me nuts. Great player,
They call him the
definitely
Lamborghini,
someone.
apparently.
Man, I'll tell you, I've seen him in so many fights. I've seen him. The dude is not afraid to throw his head around, which is awesome. It's old school hockey. I'd love it. I don't really know much about Devin Cooley. Signed a 2-year deal. I'm sure that this is just one step into them getting back into contention.
I'm hoping so because, like I said, I would love to see Calgary. I'd love to see the Battle of Alberta. Look, as much
I
as
feel like
it,
that Battle of
uh,
Alberta is going to be the Battle of Alberta, regardless of who's on each team.
yes and no. I will say, so it's been a long time since we've seen. There were times where Edmonton Oilers and Calgary Flames games, there would be more penalty minutes than there were shots and
That's
goals
what I'm
combined,
talking about.
right? So
That's
we need to have that back. Now, I'm not saying I want that rough type of hockey back because now NHL has turned into more of a skill-based game. There's a lot more teams that are kind of getting away from those enforcers or fighters, but they still exist. They're there. I just want to see, for me personally, as an Edmonton Oilers fan, I want to see Calgary kind of come back into that that conversation of the Battle of Alberta, but more so, I'm so deeply invested in a Calgary player. Like the last time I was invested in a Calgary player was Jerome McGinley. And if you guys don't know who Jerome McGinley is, go Google him because, I did a video about Oilers picking somebody else when they could have had Jerome McGinley during that draft. Kind of salty about it. But, I want to see Jonathan Huberdeau recover.
Right.
I mean, he spent so much time in Florida, and from what you know, he was the face of Florida for a very long time. And then to be traded and then to see his former teammates win a Stanley Cup and he's on a team fighting for a lottery pick, that could be very, very, mentally draining and mentally taxing on an individual. And we speak about players and some of the stuff that they go through, and this is something that this is why my heart and my mind are towards Calgary, and not to send them a level of pity or anything, but when you have a player that has had success over an extended period of time and then be put into a situation where no matter what they do, nothing's going right, that it hurts. It drives them nuts. So for me personally, I'd love to see Jonathan Huberdeau just take off, even if it's at the expense of a Vancouver Canuck team or a Winnipeg Jet team, just not the Oilers team, just and any other team but the Oilers, right? Just I want him to be successful. I want him to get his mojo back.
Right.
Now we move on to a very interesting team. They have had a lot of off-season moves. They still have a couple important moves that they have to worry about, but let's start off with, well, we're going to be doing the Carolina Hurricanes, but let's start off with the most important thing that they've done in the offseason during the free agency period was Evgeny Kuznetsov. Surprising, he was bought out was sent to the minors for the condition to be bought out so he could sign a contract in the KHL, which we'll get into. He hasn't signed a contract in the KHL because I believe he has still interest in the NHL. So maybe he didn't want to play in Carolina. I don't know. They also went ahead and they signed Martin Hook. They added Walker for 5 years. Jos Robinson Gostisbehere. I thought that was a very interesting sign. Carrier for 6 years, which is interesting. And they still have Martin Necas sitting, waiting in the wings. So what do you think Carolina does with the players that they've added and the Kuznetsov stuff? He's gone. And most importantly, Necas, does he get traded? What's their plan going?
So if I was not a Blue Jackets fan, I'm going to be completely honest, I would be a Hurricanes fan.
Okay.
I love this team. This team is awesome to watch. They're so fast. They are so physical. And my personal favorite on this team, maybe even the entire NHL, if I'm going to be completely honest, Sebastian Aho.
Yeah,
he's awesome.
He is a great player.
He's awesome to watch. He's awesome. I've seen him in person several times. He is awesome.
They're talking about bringing Laine there.
I would actually let that. I would let that happen. I'm okay with that happening.
That's what I'm saying. Like Laine's a great player. He's coming out of the rehab, and reuniting him with Sebastian Aho, I think that would make.
Well, now here's a couple of things too, because Laine went into the player assistance program, and then now he's citing that he wants like a fresh start. The Carolina Hurricanes right now on their roster have 2 former Blue Jackets in Eric Robinson, who I'm thinking is going to be on their 4th line, and Jack Roslovic, who I'm pretty sure is going to probably be on their 3rd line. I don't know where Patrick Laine fits in with that because I'm pretty sure he's a right winger. I don't see him passing Jarvis. I don't see him passing Necas. I don't see him. I see him above Roslovic, but you can't put Martin up.
Let me throw this out for you.
Roster.
What if now this is this is not true. This is speculation. This is just a run-of-the-mill armchair GMing. That's what we do here on the GM's Chair podcast. What would you do if Columbus picked up the phone and said, Carolina, seems like you have a player that's not signed, and we have a player that's kind of wanting a fresh start. And just to kind of make it somewhat equal, we'll work out the details, but we have the salary space to take on a Martin Necas, and you take on a Patrick Laine. Would that be a trade that Columbus would welcome? Would that be something that they would entertain?
I'm sure they may entertain it. I personally would not want it.
Okay.
If we're gonna get something back for Patrick Laine, I would like to have Jesperi. I really like him as a center. We don't really have great center play. I mean, we do have like Boone Jenner, we have Adam Fantilli, and now we have Sean Monahan. If I'm really honest, center is something that's lacking in Columbus, and I think Jesperi could really, really bolster the lineup.
Would be interesting to see because you know, we were talking about Laine trades the other day, and I thought Carolina would be a good fit because they still haven't gotten Jarvis signed. Jarvis is still a restricted free agent. They haven't signed him yet.
Also, somebody that I'm sad that sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for
Somebody
it.
that I'm sad that they have not brought back Carolina. Antti Ranta. He's an unrestricted free agent. We were talking earlier about signings that I think need to happen or that have shocked me that haven't happened. Antti Ranta right now being an unrestricted free agent and not being picked up by anybody, to me, is mind-blowing.
I mean, Antti Ranta, yeah, I agree. Also, I mean, they suffered quite a bit of loss in Carolina. Like Kuznetsov not there. Potentially Martin Necas gone. Brady Shea signed to Nashville. Teravainen is in Chicago. So they've taken a little bit of a hit. So that's why I thought maybe, and even Brett Pesce, he's gone. He went to New Jersey. Right? So I was thinking maybe having Laine go to a team like that could kind of offset a little bit of that offense that they lost. But who knows? I mean, we're going to see what happens. But I think that I agree with you. Carolina is a great team. Now, me personally, I have to let you in on a little bit of a tidbit. With I have a little thing with Carolina. Okay, in 2006, for all Oilers fans out there, I'm reliving that moment right now. We lost to the Carolina Hurricanes.
That should.
And they won their first cup. And then last year, Florida won their first cup. Both of them defeated the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm not very happy with these teams that are winning their first cup. So next year, Gary Bettman, whatever the script is, make it so that we're not facing a team going for the cup for the first time, because that's just not.
Columbus will be there.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to Columbus in a little bit.
I do have a lot for the next team.
One of my favorite trades by the Oilers was a superstar defenseman back then. Not anymore, and I don't think he was a superstar defenseman, but he was touted as one of the best defensemen. Jani Pitkanen. We got him from Carolina. That was the biggest scam job of a trade that the Oilers ever got. So I have a little bit of love lost for Carolina, but they are a very exciting team, and I hope to maybe one day get one of those jerseys, because those jerseys are sick. The black ones.
Carolina to me is a team that if you want to watch 60 minutes of good, fast-paced hockey, Carolina's the team to watch.
Exactly. I'll agree with that one. They are an exciting team. Not to mention I don't know if you've ever seen their post-game celebrations. They have some of the best post-game celebrations out there.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So now, moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, the Blackhawks, for those of you who don't know, are surrounded, or that, for lack of a better word, yes. But they have a young, talented, generational player in Connor Bedard. They had a struggle last season, but this season, in the offseason for the free agency period, they went out and tried to sign some players to surround him with a little bit of quality talent. Now, Chicago may make some noise this next season. However, they still matching up against the West. I don't think that's going to be possible, but they did add Teravainen, as stated before. They added Bertuzzi as well. They brought in some veterans of Maroon and Smith. They re-signed Anderson. They brought in Brossois, I should say. They brought in veteran Alec Martinez and TJ Brody for the defense. So what Chicago has done here in the offseason is bring in some veteran presence to play with Bedard. What are your thoughts on that offseason for Chicago?
I think that Chicago may have had the most productive offseason, aside from possibly Nashville.
Right.
I think that Bertuzzi is a for sure first line in Chicago. I think that him and Bedard is going to be awesome. I think Teravainen is also going to be a for sure first line. And that trio to me is awesome. I'm so excited to watch it. I think that Ilya Mikheyev
Mikheyev, yeah.
is going to be, I think he's solid. I've liked him. Nick Foligno, I think he's getting up there in age. I think we possibly should have moved on from him. I understand why you're not. I have the same feeling with Seth Jones. He was also in Columbus, and that's the reason why I know who he is. But I don't think that he is what he once was. I think the only thing that they're really lacking is goaltending. I think that's going to be their hardest thing. I think Peter Mrazek is not. I don't think he's good, man.
It,
And
it's
you can have the
crazy.
greatest defense that you can possibly put together, which I don't think that they have the greatest defense out of them. I mean,
No.
they're going to probably have Alec Martinez and TJ Brody on the third line, and I just don't think that Peter Mrazek is going to be good enough to actually keep pucks out of the net with that light of a defense. I think they made a really good step. I don't know if they're going to be in the cellar anymore, but I do like the moves that they've made, and I think that they've had a very productive offseason.
I okay, I can agree with that. I mean that third pairing defense. I mean, we're gonna get into how the opening day roster will shape up, but just based off the signings, man, that third pairing defense is gonna get walked around. I think they're a little bit older, a little bit slower. It's going to be very difficult. I do like the fact that they have given Bedard some veteran leadership and some veteran presence. Teravainen and Bertuzzi, I think that's going to be a very electric line, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. So
Oh yeah.
Chicago will put up some goals this season. I think they're going to have offense. Realistically, I'm not from Chicago. I don't really follow their news, but I think they're trying to build some exciting hockey out there
Yeah. And
based off
and
those signings.
signing a player such as Bertuzzi, I feel like is very evident of that. I've watched many games of him when he was in Toronto and many games when he was in Detroit. Ooh, yeah, Detroit. He to me is just a lightning rod. I love watching him. He's so I think that the way that he skates is very fluid.
Yeah,
He's so much fun to watch. I was a little upset when he cut his hair, but what are you gonna do?
he
What are you
might
gonna
grow it
do?
back. He might grow it back.
Hey, he's gonna need that shoulder length in order for him to be looking that great. That's just my opinion.
You know, it's crazy because I feel like his style of gameplay. Now, I could be wrong, but just the time that I've watched him, I feel like his style of gameplay and Mason McTavish, they both kind of have similar
Yep,
play styles, and I like
yep.
watching those type of players. So we'll see what happens in Chicago.
Well, and I think
Hopefully,
that
everything goes
Bertuzzi was
well.
also very overshadowed in Toronto. Sorry for interrupting you
No,
again.
you're good. You're good.
I think Bertuzzi was very overshadowed in Toronto. I think that their team was so heavily stacked. Obviously, they didn't make it far at all, which is wild considering who you have on your team. But I think that I believe Bertuzzi was on their third line. Toronto fans, let me know if I'm wrong, but I believe he was on their third line, which he
That
doesn't
sounds about
deserve to be
right.
on the third line. He needs to be higher. He really does. He's awesome. He's fast. He's good at scoring. He's a lightning rod, man, and I think Chicago really got a good one with him.
Toronto stole that away because let's be real, or sorry, Chicago stole that from Toronto. I mean, any team that went out and got Bertuzzi just stole it from Toronto because Toronto doesn't have the money
Yep,
to keep. We're gonna get to Toronto. They have their own issues over there, and I have a lot to say about Toronto, and I'm pretty sure you do with all the stuff that
I do.
Toronto's got going on over there. The
I do.
next team we have up on the docket here is the Colorado Avalanche. I felt that their off season was kind of
Lackluster.
if lackluster, but I wouldn't say it was a bad offseason because my mentality when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche is if it's not broke, don't fix it. Right? There's a potential chance
Exactly.
they could get Landeskog back this season. There's still talk about him coming back. They did, lose a couple players, but I don't really see their team being too affected by the changes that they had this offseason, and I think they're keeping status quo.
I don't either. I've not heard much about Logan O'Connor. I'm not sure the status of his injury from the end of last year, but I think he's gonna when he comes back, I think he's gonna be a big help. Um, and I've always been very pro goalie, and they have one of the best there in Colorado. And I understand if it's not broke, don't fix it. Leave it how you're going. You're doing good. You just need to stay healthy.
I just don't, over the years of watching Colorado, they've always consistently had really good goaltenders. You know
Yep,
what I mean? And if they didn't have a good goaltender, their offense just covered it up, or
exactly.
their defense covered it up. I mean, they have still the dynamic players of Cal McCarr, Mikko Rantanen,
Hmm.
Nathan McKinnon. Like they have speed, they have scoring. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Okay. Or
Yeah,
oh wow,
exactly.
yeah, that's what. Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And they brought back Drouin, who has found a resurgence, I guess, in his career. He had all those problems playing for Montreal, and then just kind of bounced around, just didn't really find his game. But watching some of Colorado last year, Drouin really fit in with this group, and I think he's found his home. So they signed him again for another 1 year, and I'd like to see Drouin at the end of this season. He might actually be able to get that long-term extension moving forward with another team or even with Colorado, because he's definitely earned his keep here on this team. And I think Colorado, even though they haven't done too much in the off season, I still think that they're going to be one of the top teams in the West. I
I would
still think
agree.
they will. Now
Here's
we're gonna we're gonna move on to a very particular team. I don't know if you know this team very well. I don't know if you have any experience with this team or if you've ever watched any of their games, but the Columbus Blue Jackets had a very interesting offseason. They went
they
ahead
did.
and signed Sean Monahan, and I mean that would be the most notable. They also lost Jake Bean to Calgary that we said earlier. They still have a few players that they do need to sign. They lost Gauntz to Minnesota, Meyer to Anaheim, uh, Blankenberg. I'm sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, to
Oh, that's
Nashville.
right.
Uh, they still have Jacob Zaboral that needs to be signed. Alex Nylander, I think I heard his name being tossed in the news. He might have gone somewhere, or what's going on with him. But tell me about Columbus's offseason and what do you think?
Okay, so I'm a full-time or was a full-time season ticket holder. I had to step back a little bit. Sean Monahan, I think he's a good sign. I do not think for 5 years he is a good sign. I think he is old. I think he is on his way out. So for him to sign or for Columbus to offer him a 5-year contract to me is just insane.
Right.
Um, there's so Dylan Gambrell signed a 2-year. This team
I'm
hurts my
sitting back.
heart. It hurts
I'm
my
letting you
heart.
go. I'm sitting back. I'm gonna let you take care of this.
Jack Reeves being signed, he doesn't really he's not in the NHL a lot. He's in the AHL a lot. He plays for the Cleveland Monsters a lot, a lot. He gets really called up only when there's an injury or when Elvis Merzlikins says that he wants to be traded because he doesn't like to be playing second goalie minutes, which is BS because he had more minutes than any other goalie on the team. So he just didn't want to share the spotlight. Um, but Ken Johnson's going to come back from injury. That's going to be extremely important. I don't think that he is second line worthy. I think Boone Jenner is second line worthy. But according to and at Daily Faceoff, they have Kent Johnson as their second line, which to me is okay. A little weird. I don't like the fact that they're saying that they're going to break up the what the Columbus Blue Jackets fans call the Russian line. I don't like that they're breaking that up. Kirill Marchenko, um, Dmitry Voronkov, and Yegor Chinnikov. I do not like that they're breaking them up. Those three were awesome on the ice together. They scored very, very frequently. They hit very, very hard. I don't like that they're breaking them apart. Past that, they also re-signed Denton Matthew. We're gonna mess that one up. We're just gonna move on from that. Um, my only problems currently with this team, I have several. Erica Branson is aging. I love him to death. He's a great player. He is Columbus's fighter, whatever you want to call him. He's the guy that will step up. Him and Matthew Olivier, they will step up when somebody is hurt. They've done it many times last season for Adam Fantilli. They did it for Johnny Gaudreau. They will step up when need be. When Matt Rempe came to Columbus, Matthew Olivier was there to ring that bell. Took him down in pretty good fashion. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't. I'm gonna have to watch that highlight. I'm gonna have to
It
watch
was
that fight.
beautiful. It was beautiful. Matthew Olivier is only about 5'8".
Oh
Took him
wow.
down. Other than that, I think the only real problem is defense and goalies. I think forwards, I think we're set. I think our forwards are good. Having our defense be Zach Werenski, he's a great player. He's got really good vision. He's very good at distributing the puck when he has it. I think that's great. Damon Severson, I don't think that his production's there. Ivan Provorov, I don't think that his production's there. David Jiricek, I think, is very young. He's gotten a lot of time in the AHL. He's kind of been back and forth between Columbus and Cleveland, but he's young and he still needs to be polished out. Their third line, which is that Denton Matvichuk and Eric Goodbranson. Eric's old. Denton's, I believe, a rookie. I don't think that pairing is going to go well. Eric Goodbranson is very slow. Denton is not. Denton is very fast. So their defense kind of needs a little bit of work, needs a little bit of polishing. It's a work in progress. Also, goalies.
Size.
Columbus is very notably small. When Winnipeg came to Columbus last year, their last meetup that they had with Columbus when they were in Columbus. I remember sitting there in the stands and saying, "Holy cow, these guys are," and it's because their average size is, I believe, 6'4",
Yep.
whereas Columbus's average size is somewhere around 5'10". It is a noticeable difference, and when they're even taking their faceoffs, it is a noticeable difference, and it's the same way with every other team. I watched a team come into Columbus. The team is always way bigger, always.
So
Columbus, for some reason,
do you think they missed the ball by not signing players that could add size? Because he said Olivier and Gabranson were realistically the only two fighters that you guys had, and this team is small. Did they miss the mark?
I think that this year with them having to go on a GM search and a head coaching search, it kind of might have screwed with that. They didn't really have anybody. They had John Davidson, who's the president of Hockey Ops in Columbus. I'd assume, doing everything that he can, but there's only so much that one guy can do. And if you're trying to look for a GM and you're trying to look for a head coach all before the draft, granted, the head coach didn't happen until just recently, a couple days.
Yeah.
The GM portion of it, if you don't have the time in free agency when you don't have those two key components, like, you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to get the valuable input. And if the president of Hockey Ops is going to be the one trying to sign everybody, you're not going to get everything done. So I think that this year, Columbus is going to take it on the shins. I really do believe that. I love this team with everything that I have. I don't think that they crack the bottom. I don't think they crack the bottom third. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't. I think their goalie play is subpar. I think Elvis has the chance to be a very, very legitimate starter in this league if he can get some defense in front of him. I've seen Elvis stand on his head to make stops. I've seen this man do everything. I've seen him fight. I've seen Elvis do everything. And I think he's a very, very posterizing player. I just don't think that he has the defense to be able to back it up, which is why they've been putting Daniil Tarasov in. And Daniil Tarasov is a little bit bigger. He's a little bit more easy to go left and right. but Elvis being the person that he wants to be and saying that he is a starter, he's not a backup goalie, and he wants starter minutes, which he gets. Kind of put a little bit of, I would assume it put a little bit of a salty taste in the mouths of like Daniil Tarasov and Jets Greaves. So the goalie situation needs to be figured out for sure. I don't see this team making it out of the bottom third.
So I'm going to go back a little bit on what you said about Columbus getting a new head coach, and they're obviously searching for a new GM. I do understand that because the Oilers were looking for a new GM before the draft.
They did hire a GM.
Yes. So what are your thoughts on this new coach? Because I haven't heard anything about him. I don't really know much about this coach. What are your thoughts on him?
So let me pull it up. He's the former coach for the Minnesota Wild.
Okay.
And from what I understand, because I don't know much about him. I'm gonna be completely honest. I don't.
And that's fair.
As far as I know, he led the Wild to like back-to-back playoffs or something to the extent Dean Evason. I don't really have much to say about him. He was a 5th-round draft pick. He's amassed 147, 77, and 27 record over 251 games, 5 seasons as a head coach. That I don't know much about him, but hey, if you can be a pillar and you can be a little stepping stone to get us out of, I'm not even gonna say get us to the cup in the next 3 years. If you can get us out of the bottom third, I'd be okay.
Well, he went on to say, "We want to win the Stanley Cup. I've dreamt of hoisting the Stanley Cup with a blue suit on." So it sounds like he's motivated to get this team kind of going through its issues. I'm excited. I don't really know anything about him. He coached the Minnesota Wild. I'm just looking this up right now. He coached the Wild over 5 seasons from 2020 to last season. He's got a .639 win percentage, and he that ranks him 5th among active NHL coaches with 250 or more games. I can tell you right now, I've never heard of this coach until right now, and he's 5th among coaches. So it looks like we'll see. I guess you and I are both gonna have to see what Columbus has got here in this coach and maybe what he can do. For those of you who are watching and are cheering for the Columbus Blue Jackets, get on to Amazon or whatever place you can find and buy some shin guards, because you guys are going to need some shin guards this season.
We're going to take it. We're going to take it on the shins. It's going to be a very, very rough year. And much as I love the Blue Jackets, I do not see the bottom third being cracked this year. I just don't. New coach, new GM. The defense didn't change at all. We signed an old forward. I personally don't see it. I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
A lot more work. What's the status of Malcolm Subban? I know he's on the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, I remember at one point in time No, he's not. Okay, it says that he's an unrestricted free agent now. So at one point in time, he was highly touted to be a goaltender of the future. He fell off. Where did he go?
I believe he played 1 game.
Wow.
In Columbus.
That's interesting. Well, going from the Columbus Blue Jackets and the cold, cold city of Columbus, we go to a hot city in Dallas, the Dallas Stars. I know you and I have spoken about this as a team that you know very well and have kind of followed. They made some very interesting moves this offseason. Most notably, they had a retirement. Not Matt Duchene. Joe Pavelski. I will start off by saying absolutely love Joe Pavelski. Watched him his entire career, but he is now moving on. They went ahead and re-signed Duchene, who has seen a little bit of resurgence on Dallas. They brought in Dumba, Brendan Smith, Blackwell, Lind, Steele,
Il,
Lundqvist,
Il,
and Lyubushkin.
Ilya Lyubushkin?
Ilya Lyubushkin for 3 years, and he was a defenseman. I believe I heard that name in Toronto, and also in
Yep.
Anaheim.
Yep.
They did lose some notable agents to Chicago. Craig Smith went to Chicago. Derek Pouliot went to Tampa Bay. Scott Wedgwood went to Nashville. They had the whole. I mean, there's this whole drama behind Honkenpa. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what Dallas. I don't know how to gauge their off season, mainly because it just seems like Dallas is that old veteran team that won't go away, and you're surprised that they're good, but they're good because they're veterans.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Dallas is, I guess, would be comparable to Colorado. They kind of had a little bit of a status quo season.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me that their only restricted free agent, I don't know if they've signed him, was Thomas Harley. That's going to be I mean, if they lose Thomas Harley, that could be hurtful for them. But other than that, bringing in Matt Dumba, let's talk about that. What do you think that would do for the Dallas defense? Has he lost his step? Because he didn't really perform all that well or highly expected when going to Tampa Bay, and now he comes to Dallas for a fresh start. What do you think his outlook for this season is going to be?
I personally think that he's lost his step. In 2023, 2024, he played in 76 games and only amassed 12 points. I
Yeah,
don't think that. I think it may have been an insurance sign, honestly. I don't think that there's much there.
yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't even know how to spend any time on Dallas. They're just status quo.
Yeah,
You
I
want to
think
move
that
on
they're.
to?
I hope that they do great. I really do. The only thing that I've seen that maybe a little bit of a plus for them is they did sign Casey DeSmith.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay. Casey DeSmith. Let's just see if he is can stay healthy.
I think
Uh,
that's a very good tandem. Jake Ottinger and Casey DeSmith. I think that's a good
I mean,
goalie tandem.
Jake Ottinger scares me.
So
He's a
good.
phenomenal goaltender. And here's the thing about Jake Ottinger that I've learned. It's almost as if for the first two periods he says, "You know what? I'm just gonna
I'm
chill.
here.
I'm
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 here.
just gonna chill. I'm here so I don't get fined." In the famous
Yep.
words of Marshawn Lynch. But then in the third period, it just says, "Hey, I'm actually gonna take over," and he scares me. When
Yep.
it's almost as if every team has to plan around scoring and being ahead in the first two periods, so that
Yep.
way you're safe from Jake Ottinger in the third. So I'm excited to
Well,
see.
Dallas always has had they have the firepower to be able to bring it
They
back in the
do,
third.
they
So
do.
if you're gonna score in the first 40 minutes, you better score a lot.
So I mean, they have the firepower for now. I feel like their window is closing. Tyler Seguin is kind of getting a little bit older. Jamie Benn obviously a little bit older. Miro Heiskanen. Okay, so let me touch on Dallas. I know we were going to move on here, but let me touch on Dallas. I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest mistakes that Dallas made was John Klingberg. They should have kept him. It
Yeah.
reminds me of, and that's not saying that Miro Heiskanen should have been the one that goes. I think they should have found a way to keep both John Klingberg and Miro Heiskanen by sacrificing one of the older forwards up forward,
Yep.
because it reminds me of if you go, I'm going way back in time. So for those of you who are watching and are old school NHL fans, it reminds me of the Zdeno Chara Wade Redden situation when Ottawa decided we're going to stay with Wade Redden instead of keeping Zdeno Chara.
Right.
Right. So
Ended
this
up being the
one,
captain for the Bruins and being an absolute weapon.
a huge weapon. I mean, they benefited from that. So I feel like Dallas, if they would have kept John Klingberg, it probably would have worked out for them. But him going to Toronto, I mean, him going elsewhere. And last season he was in Toronto, he didn't even play. He
Yeah.
was injured. All right, so I think that was a big loss for the Dallas Stars going back just a few years just for that one. But yeah, other than that, I think Dallas, they're probably not going to be. I mean,
I wouldn't
we'll
put them
get
in the
to.
cup. I wouldn't put them in the cup.
Yeah,
I would put them in the playoffs.
they'll be in the playoffs for sure. They'll be in the playoffs. I can 110% agree with that. This season's going to be rough for them because that Central Division got a whole lot more powerful,
Oh
and
yeah.
we haven't even gotten to those teams. So let's continue on to another team here that is probably going to be fighting for a draft pick, a draft lottery pick, maybe even fighting for a wild card spot. I hope they fight for a wild card spot because at the end of last season, they were so close. I think they missed it by 1 or 2 points. They went down to the
Mhm.
final game. And if they can get a much better start this season, maybe they actually can go into the playoffs. And we're talking about the Detroit Red Wings. They brought in Talbot, which stabilizes their goaltending. So I think it's say what you want about Talbot. I think he's going to be a good addition on the back end to be able to kind of stabilize that young group that's there in Detroit.
Mhm.
Um, Other than that, they brought in a veteran sniper in Tarasenko. We saw Tarasenko uh, play for the Florida Panthers this last season and win a Stanley Cup, and he kind of bought into the system of being that role player, chipping in when he needed to, and working hard. So I think that's going to be huge for this young Detroit team. They did lose Shane Gostisbehere. They lost David Perron, who was a goal scorer for them. Beyond that, I mean, they lost James Reimer, but let's be real. I think Talbot over Reimer is kind of an upgrade.
Yep.
And then they lost Daniel Sprong, which was interesting. He went to Vancouver. So Detroit um, also picked up a backup goaltender or a starting goaltender for their AHL. Thank you so much, Detroit, for taking Jack Campbell off our hands. I appreciate that. Yes, we'd had to buy him out, but you took him. I'll take it. And then we look at their defense, because like we're gonna
Their
go
defense, I think,
into
needs help.
their defense needs help. It is aging. It is slow. It needs to be refined. I got a lot of flack for proposing that we take one of their aging defensemen and give them a younger defenseman in Cody Ceci, and maybe you guys have the ability to move. But I digress from what I said. I think Detroit here is. I think they're a bubble team based off the signings that they made. They also signed Mott as well. They have Gustafson, which is really good, to a 2-year contract. Uh, you, he played for the New York Rangers. I don't know
Yep.
if you if you watch any New York Rangers games. I thought he was pretty stable. So I think they added some pieces out there in Detroit, and the only thing that makes it worth it is if they get a better start this season. If they get a better start this season, they're golden. And I actually,
If they get a
sorry,
better start with their first two lines, of if we're repeating from last year, I believe it's going to be DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond on their first line, and then their second line is going to be JT Comper and Patrick Kane
they
and
have to they have to sign
Tarasenko.
they have to sign Raymond. Raymond's still restricted free agent. He hasn't signed yet. So they're
Okay,
I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Patrick Kane, man, I will tell you,
I
Patrick
will be a fan
Kane,
of Patrick's till the day I die.
I'm a fan of Patrick Kane, but I'm very shocked that number one, he didn't do a second run with New York, try to maybe recoup that
Mhm.
terrible run that he had with New York. But on top of that, I'm surprised that he didn't sign with a team and go for another cup. Mind you, he has several opportunities. He's won
Right,
cups. It's not like he
right.
needs to win before he ends his career. But I would have thought maybe that he would have signed maybe a team friendly deal to a Stanley Cup contender to push us over the edge. Now, I'm not going to lie, I would have loved it if we had Patrick Kane on the Edmonton Oilers, but I digress. We do have a Kane on the Oilers, it's just not Patrick. I promise you, when the news broke that the Oilers signed Kane, I remember it to this day. I went through my phone. I was like, no way, we got Kane. And then I saw we got Evander Kane. I was like, oh,
All
it's
right.
like the best way to describe that, it's like those powdered donuts. I love chocolate,
Yeah.
okay? I love chocolate and I love the powdered donuts. It's like somebody said, here's the powdered donut, here's the chocolate powdered donut, which is like that would be like Patrick Kane for me,
Right.
right? Like, but then the regular powdered donut, which is not bad, it's still good. It's amazing. Was
Right.
Evander Kane. I was like, oh, okay, well I'll still take it, and he's proven to
Right.
be really good. But yeah, I think Detroit is going to be interesting. They do need to make a fast start. They have this season, they're going to be logging 36,000 miles in team travel distance. So they're among the lowest in terms of teams traveling. Believe it or not, this is why the last team that we did, Dallas, they're going to be logging 56,000 miles of travel.
Jeez.
So that's why Dallas, they kept it status quo. They have an aging team. There's concerns there. They're going to be traveling quite a bit. I can actually send you this picture. I'll send it to you right now, actually, here on Discord, because to me, I think having this travel for teams is going to be interesting because you're going to see how certain teams adjust to the travel. And Dallas, as being as old as they are, is now going to have to do a lot of traveling, and that's going to be taxing on them. They are one of the top teams. The Oilers are fourth. The Ducks are 51,000. They're taking that show on the road. The Florida Panthers, they're 51,000. They're taking that show on the road. Some of the lower teams. Columbus is not traveling as much this year. Believe it or not,
I'm all right
Columbus
with that.
has 33,000 miles that they're going to be traveling this season based off of their schedule. The lowest is Pittsburgh Penguins. So we may not see Sidney Crosby throughout the season because his team is not going to be traveling as much. But yeah, going back to Detroit, they have a relatively easy schedule in terms of travel. So they have a young team. We'll see what happens. Hopefully they can push into the playoffs. And then next is the Edmonton Oilers. Now, let me cook for a second on this one because I will start off by saying I am so happy that we have a guy like Jeff Jackson that was running the team until today when Jeff Jackson made the most controversial signing ever, getting Stan Bowman to be your GM. It is frustrating as an Oilers fan to know that when you have something good and then somebody just rips it out of your hand, when will this stop for Oilers fans? I don't know. But now we have a GM in place, Stan Bowman, credible GM amidst all the scandal. I mean, he knows how to run an organization. That's kind of what we needed. We needed a credible GM after Ken Holland, who I give him a C, maybe a D grade at best. But the Oilers did what they needed to do. They got the GM, much to the chagrin. Hopefully he does well. Hopefully he can win over the fans. But in the offseason, they went out and they're pressed up against the cap. They're a little bit over the cap, but we needed to bring back agents. We needed to bring back that team that went to the Stanley Cup. And not only did we do that, we added some more pieces to make us even more dangerous for next year. We kept Connor Brown. We kept Adam Henrique. We kept Matthias Janmark. All those guys are there. We still have to sign Philip Broberg, and we still have to sign Dylan Holloway. We lost Carrick. That's okay. I'm not worried about it. He was a fourth liner. He was signed in New York. We traded with Buffalo. We got Ryan McLeod out. We brought in Raphael. Oh, sorry, not Raphael. We had Matthew Savoie. We signed Raphael Lavoie. We brought in Victor Arvidsson, who is going to fit perfectly on that second line with Draisaitl. And then on the other side, just when you think we didn't have enough offense, why don't we go out and get Jeff Skinner? The offseason for the Oilers, I think, other than Nashville, I think the Oilers won the offseason. They went out, they kept all the players that they needed to keep, and on top of that, went out and essentially did a little bit of shopping to make us more offensively gifted. Okay, so we're going to go to the opening day rosters after all this stuff is done, but just the top two lines alone, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman. Okay, Second line, Draisaitl, Skinner, Arvidsson. Third line potentially is going to be Adam Henrique, Connor Brown, Matthias Janmark. Maybe that might even be the fourth line. But the third line, we have Dylan Holloway and Evander Kane. Our third line center, realistically, we could put Nugent Hopkins there and move Evander Kane up to the second line. We could move Jeff Skinner up to the top line. Evander Kane or Dylan Holloway to the second line. Keep Evander Kane on the third line. We have so many options. Our first power play unit, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Evan Bouchard. Great first power play unit. Our second line could be any one of the combinations. We could even put Ryan Nugent-Hopkins on the second power play unit and still have Jet Skinner and Victor Arvidsson on that power play. So the Oilers did what they needed to do. They went out, they got the offense that they needed to get. Yes, did they lose Vinny Desharnais and a big defenseman back there? They did. There's still talk about Cody Ceci potentially being moved out. We're trying to find a trade partner. We're trying to find somebody that will take the money just so we can get under the cap. We re-signed Corey Perry, brought him back. I don't see him making too much of an impact on the Oilers roster throughout the season, maybe for the playoffs. I think that's why we signed him. We lost Warren Fogle to LA, which I'm 50-50 on that because he does work hard, but he's a little bit streaky at times. So he wasn't very, very reliable for consistent offense. But I loved his work ethic and I loved everything that he did for the Oilers. Other than that, I mean, the Oilers did what we needed to do. And I think just the moves alone could potentially vault the Oilers into some serious consideration. Top 5, top 6, top 7 in the NHL. I feel like with these additions, the Oilers could challenge for a potential President's Trophy this year based off of those additions. It just makes us a lot more of a dynamic team. I think they did really well.
I would agree. I think that I think you're underselling it when you say top 4 or 5. I would put them top 2 or 3. I can't personally put anybody that Edmonton is so insanely talented. I cannot personally think of any team right now that is as talented as they are. I mean, you have McDavid, him alone, and Draisaitl. Those two, you're not going to get a better combo in the NHL.
I will say, man, if I were to venture down that road with you, the top 3-4 teams in the NHL this next season, just based off of paper alone, should be Edmonton, New York, Nashville, and I hate to say this, it should be Toronto with the skill that they have there.
I don't think
realistically.
I just don't.
No, I don't think so either, but it should be just based on paper alone. We'll get to them. They spent so much money on superstars who have not gotten anything for them, but exactly. I digress. We'll get to them. So from the biggest winners, in my personal opinion as an Edmonton Oilers fan, to the biggest losers, I think are the Florida Panthers here.
I would agree.
Go ahead.
I would agree.
Let me know. I'll let you take this because if I speak on the Florida Panthers, I'm too close to the situation of the Florida Panthers. I might speak with a little bit of ill will, so I'm going to let you take this one.
So, just on who they lost Asplund, Carlson, Cormier, Ekman Larson, Fitzgerald, Guzda.
Gudas, yep. Oh no, Guzda. Yeah. I'm thinking Gudas. Sorry, Guzda. Yeah.
Ryan Lomberg, Dmitry Kulikov. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Vladimir Tarasenko, Alexander True. It's just they lost Anthony Stolarz. They lost their entire team. I don't know how they repeat last year. I cannot see it. Ryan Lomberg, I feel like, was a pillar on their team. Tarasenko is a pillar on the team. Carlson was very good. Cormier was very good. Ekman Larson, in the playoffs was just outstanding. I don't see. Florida to me is the losers of the offseason. They
Okay.
lost everybody. The only positives that I can see that they actually signed is like Jesper Boqvist, but they also signed Adam Boqvist, which is his younger brother, which I just don't. They're both on 1 year contracts. Those are the two that I can see that I really can go, oh, okay, so they made some kind of move. Past that, I don't. Florida lost everybody in this offseason. I don't see them repeating.
I
I'd
can
be shocked
I
if
can
they
agree
make
with
it to
that.
the playoffs.
I
I
mean,
would be shocked.
this is a team that, I mean, we can say that now, but this is a team that's not even 2 years removed from being a President's Trophy champion. They
Yeah.
are a season removed from being the Stanley Cup champion. They have systematically, quietly dominated that division. They've overtaken Tampa Bay. They've really put a hurt on that division. They still kept Barkov. They have Kachuk. They have Lundell. They have Kulikov. They still kept a little bit of their forward group intact. But I can agree with you that I think they did lose this offseason, but just by
Yep.
the players that they lost. Now, OEL, he's a great player, great defenseman, but I think he's a little bit up there in age. He wasn't anything more than a third line defenseman, second line pairing when needed. He moved up. He ran the power play. Uh, Losing Anthony Stollers as their backup goaltender, I think Chris Dreiger is not going to fill his shoes. I think Anthony Stollers
No.
is better.
Yep.
Losing Brandon Montour. Now, some Florida fans might be happy about that because of all the mistakes that he was making, but Brandon Montour is actually a pretty good defenseman. He went to Seattle. Kyle Okposo, he's gone, so I don't really think the Florida Panthers will miss him too much. They lost Josh Mahura, who was their fourth liner, who was really good. They lost Ryan Lomberg, who is their energy guy. Vladimir Tarasenko was their, secondary scoring, so to speak. They did lose quite a bit, and I can agree with you that they might have been one of the losers of this offseason, but when you win the Stanley Cup, are you really losers in the offseason?
No.
So we're gonna see what happens. I don't think they're gonna repeat, but I do think that they are going to be a still relatively good team, especially considering uh, the losses that the other teams in that division have faced, which is going to be interesting to see how that division shapes up. So it could have been the division probably could be theirs, and it could be theirs by default because of the other teams losing the players that they lost. I feel like uh, the South. I grew up. They used to call it the Southeast Division. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I called them the South Least Division because there was always the teams that would just get absolutely kicked on. So we'll see how that division turns out. Some other teams did make some additions, but I can agree with you that they might have been one of the losers of this offseason for sure. Next, we have a team next, the Los Angeles. So let's do both of these teams together because with both of these teams, the Los Angeles Kings and the Minnesota Wild, both of them, I would have to list them as losers of the offseason as well. Mainly
Yep.
because it's it's like they believe that they're good teams and they decided to be status quo and they aren't making the changes that they are making because I don't know if they don't have the money or if they just don't seem to know what to do. I mean, so Los Angeles, they lost Victor Arvidsson to Edmonton. Did they replace him with somebody? Yes, Warren Fogle, but it's not really a replacement. They lost who else? They lost Blake Lizotte to Pittsburgh. They lost uh Cam Talbot to Detroit. They lost Trevor, or no, they re-signed Trevor Lewis. They lost Matt Roy, their defender, to Washington. They lost Kevin Connaughton to Utah. They haven't signed Aaron Dell. Hodgson signed all the way in Ottawa. They re-signed Byfield. Good for them. I'm happy. Great future of that organization. But Anze Kopitar is not getting any younger. Drew Doughty is not getting any younger. Like and now you look at Minnesota, the same thing. Minnesota didn't sign a dang person that was of worth
Yeah, I
notable. I
believe
mean,
they re-signed Marc-Andre Fleury though.
Marc-Andre Fleury, which to me, look, Minnesota,
He's old.
Bill
He's
Guerin,
old.
please let Marc-Andre Fleury just trade him to Pittsburgh. Let him finish
Yep.
his career with Pittsburgh. That's where he belongs. Let him finish out with Christopher Letang, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby. Just
Yep.
please, because him being in Minnesota is not. They lost players too, and they didn't even sign anybody. They didn't sign anybody worth what? Mason Shaw
Nope.
from Winnipeg, what, a fourth liner, third liner.
Yep. That's about
They
it.
this
That's all I'm
like
seeing.
these two teams definitely failed in the offseason. I don't think they did what they were supposed to do. Frankly, it's just really bad.
And I think the next team also is a loser.
The Montreal Canadiens, yeah, so they didn't do anything, and I think that's okay, mainly because the Montreal Canadiens they're still a young team. They really
Yep.
can't do much. They re-signed their star player Slavsky, the draft picks. I don't even know how to say his name.
Slavkovsky.
Slavkovsky. It's going to take me a while, so sorry, Montreal Canadian fans, if you're watching, don't be upset with me. Yeah, so 3 straight losers right here. Los Angeles, Minnesota, and
Yep.
I'd say Montreal is on the bubble for being a loser team, if I'm going to be honest.
I would agree.
Now, Nashville.
Oh.
Nashville is by far, I'm not going to deny that they were one of the winners of this offseason. They go in and get the top 3 free agents off the board in Stamkos, Marchessault, and Brady Shea.
It's almost like Nashville looked at their team and said, "Okay, so we did great last year. We don't need that. Let's go ahead and do better."
Yeah.
That's what I'm putting it as. They did a complete 180. They signed, like you said, Steven Stamkos, Marchessault, and Brady Shea. And they re-signed Saros.
Yep, they re-signed Saros. They were still having talks about Askarov maybe potentially being traded
Yep.
or whatnot. But if I'm Nashville, hold on to Askarov, because
Yep.
if you can get his value up, or if maybe you need him to fill in for Saros, that'd be really good for a playoff run, because I predict Nashville to go on a very deep playoff run. I wouldn't be surprised if the Western Conference Final was Edmonton versus Nashville. I would not be
That would
surprised,
not surprise me.
because, I mean, man, they have Ryan O'Reilly, Philip Forsberg, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault.
They really didn't lose anybody.
They didn't lose anybody, and they still have Roman Josi back there. Like, man, Nashville won. And kudos to Barry Trotz. I mean, not only was he a phenomenal coach, but as a GM, he is just as good. He's built this team. He's built this team, and I don't see them losing. I think they're going to really make a huge run. They're letting Kevin Lankinen most likely won't come back. Liam Foudy is not coming back. They let Jason Zucker go to Buffalo, which I think was a smart decision. Tyson Barrie, there's still questions about if he's going to come back. They let Beauvillier sign in Pittsburgh, so they really have upgraded the spaces that they, I guess,
They got rid of
go.
all their no names, the people that or the players that nobody really knows, their bottom people. They got rid of them and replaced them with obviously stars. I mean, they did some work. They did some work.
This next one, these next 3 teams are from New York, the great state of New York. So we've got New Jersey, the Islanders, and the Rangers. And by looking at all 3 of these teams, I think New Jersey did the best. New Jersey got Brett Pesce and Brandon Dillon. They brought in Tatar. They re-signed Tatar, I should say. They didn't really lose too much. They added some. Who am I thinking? Oh no, I'm thinking somebody else. Capo Kakinen, he signed in Winnipeg. So yeah, no, New Jersey didn't really lose too much. They did a trade earlier at the end of last season, or they brought in Jake Allen to kind of stabilize their goaltending. Uh, they did really good. New York Islanders, they lost Sebastian Aho, not the one in Carolina, but they lost
No,
Sebastian Aho,
his twin.
um, his twin, quote unquote. New
And
York
he's going to be playing in
Islanders,
the Metro again.
he is. New York Islanders did an absolute jack. I mean, their best one
Yeah,
is Anthony Duclair. No knock on him, but they didn't do anything. They just
yeah.
sat on their hands. The New York Rangers, I didn't believe that they needed to do anything. They had a pretty good team last year. Worst comes to worst, they just needed to sign some complementary pieces. I think they did do that by going out and getting Carrick, Fitzgerald, and Redwill and Schneider. Uh, losing Gustafson on the back end to Detroit might be a little bit of a ouch, but I don't think it's going to bother them too much. They still have Shazirkin there. They did lose Wenberg. Wenberg is now in San Jose, and Blake Wheeler most likely is going to retire. But I think New York is still going to be a pretty good team. They still have a high powered offense there. We'll see what
They
happens.
also
But
lost. They also lost Jack Roslovic.
and they lost Jack Roslovic. Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I got to look at
I mean,
my.
they only had him for about half a season last year, but I feel
So
like he came in and made it a pretty immediate impact.
when we get to our uh, projections, I'm going to tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you where I see these teams sitting. Uh, okay, Ottawa Senators. They. Okay, I mean, what the heck is going on in Ottawa? Seriously, what the heck is going on in Ottawa? Like, can we
And
just skip Ottawa? Can we do the due
Yep.
diligence of just skip Ottawa? Because look, you
I think
have
their best thing that they did is they signed Linus Ullmark, or they
Linus
traded for
Ullmark,
Linus Ullmark.
and I don't
That's
think
it.
he hasn't even signed a contract yet.
Nope,
I don't think he wants to be there.
he doesn't.
Claude Giroux is there. They have Brady Tkachuk there. They re-signed Pinto for 2 years. Ottawa, if there's any Ottawa fans, get your stuff together.
Yep.
Please get your stuff together.
Please.
Philadelphia is another one of those teams. Philadelphia re-signed Eric Johnson. They're probably not going to bring back Mark Stahl, but realistically,
so.
Eric Johnson was kind of like their big signing, which is sad. That's really bad.
Yep.
That's really bad. Yeah, Philadelphia, they didn't really do anything else. Pittsburgh did
I hate this team.
whole lot of I understand. Pittsburgh did a whole lot of signing complementary pieces.
Well, they did sign Sebastian Aho.
Yes, but not the
And they
Sebastian Aho
re-signed
that we
no,
want.
not the Sebastian Aho, but a Sebastian Aho. They re-signed Emil Bemstrom. I've gotten to watch him a few times over the last few years, and I mean, he's all right. We were supposed to get Columbus was supposed to get a complimentary pick for him if he got, I believe, 6 goals before the end of the season. He ended up getting 5, so he kind of screwed Columbus over. But Pittsburgh re-signed him, so like, great, I guess.
We're gonna see what happens. I mean, Sidney Crosby, Sid the Kid, or Sid the middle-aged man, or Sid the Legend, whatever you want to call him. He's
Sid the middle-aged man still put up MVP numbers last year.
Yeah, he's still putting up MVP numbers, and I mean, with everything that Pittsburgh. So let's have this conversation with this offseason that Pittsburgh had, because I know Evgeny Malkin, he's getting old. He's getting to the end of his career. Okay, Christopher Letang is not the same defender that he was, and he's getting to the end of his career.
I would agree.
Sidney Crosby, yes, it looks like he's getting to the end of his career, but when is that going to happen? He's still showing pretty solid numbers, and I don't know if Sidney Crosby himself has it in him at this age, maybe when he was younger, but at this age, to carry this team.
He doesn't. And I think if he doesn't retire in the next 2 years based off of his stats declining, I think Sidney's retirement is going to come just because he's like, you know what, I can't carry this team. I don't think he leaves Pittsburgh. I really don't. I think he retires in Pittsburgh. He retires as a Penguin. but I
But I thought
don't
about
think his
Stamkos.
career lasts.
That's what I thought
Yeah,
about Stamkos. I mean, there's talk about Sidney Crosby potentially going to Colorado.
I don't think that happens.
I hope not. I hope not. If the Oilers somehow lose out on Draisaitl, Sidney Crosby come to the Oilers. Straight up. Imagine Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid on the same team.
I mean, that's
That'd be nuts. But there was rumors about him potentially wanting to play with Nathan MacKinnon on the same line. They're playing together on the Four Nations tournament. They have a
yeah,
top line of Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, and Nathan MacKinnon. That's
yeah,
insane.
it's pretty nuts.
That's ridiculous,
It's pretty nuts.
right? So we'll see what Sidney Crosby does. But I agree with you, man. I don't think they're gonna be able to. He can't carry this team anymore.
No,
There's no way. Do you think Evgeny Malkin is moved?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that ownership group values those three: Letang, Malkin, and Crosby. I think they value them way too much.
They're just gonna hold on to them and ride out in the sunset, huh?
I That's how I feel. Yeah, which I think it's only right, honestly.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, Sid the Kid, I don't want to see him in any other jersey. Realistically, I joke
Nope.
about him being in Edmonton, but I don't want to see him in any other jersey.
No. He needs to
Unless
keep
it's
that black and
the
yellow on.
old school Yarmer Yager Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. That go
There
back
you
to
go.
that. Okay, I want to see
Yeah.
that jersey. Actually, as an NHL fan, I would be very happy to see that. Next, we have the number one overall selecting San Jose Sharks.
Oh,
Uh, they are definitely in a 110% rebuild. Gone are Mike Hoffman, Kevin LeBlanc, Oscar Lindbaum, Jason McDonald, Jack Studinka, Ryan Carpenter gone. They re-signed Delandria. I mean, they have a very, very young team. They have Matt Celebrini there now. Mike Greer's doing everything he
oh,
possibly can. The most random surprise offseason signing to me was Tyler Toffoli saying, "Forget it, I'm just gonna go 4 years and go play in San Jose." There's
right.
no way he's playing in San Jose with the aspirations of winning a cup. If
No,
if you're an NHL fan and you're predicting San Jose to win the cup, please put your money down and let's see how much money you're willing to bet on them winning the cup, because they're definitely nowhere close to this.
no.
So Tyler Toffoli going to play for San Jose, I think it's more of a. I don't know if he has a no movement clause on that contract, because I feel like if he does have a no movement contract, yeah, he's signed a 4-year, $6 million deal. I don't think he has a no move clause on that contract. So he's just signing there just to sign for
The
longevity,
right term. Yeah,
and
long term.
then he gets traded, and no matter what team he goes to, I mean, if he doesn't have a no move clause, he could be traded every one of those 4 years. But
Right.
if he has a no move clause, then he just wants to be stabilized, because the last few years for Tyler Toffoli, he's played for the LA Kings, he's played for the New Jersey Devils, he's played for the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, his tenure over the
He
last
was
few
the
years,
star for all of them.
he was a star for all of them. So the last few teams, so the Devils, the Flames, the Canadiens, the Canucks, the Kings,
Oh,
the
the
Jets.
Flames. I forgot about his time in Calgary.
Yeah, so he's played quite a bit, and I think, yeah, he probably just signed this contract just to say, you know what, I just need to chill and hang out for a moment.
Right.
So that to me was a shocking signing. But other than that, I don't think San Jose is going to really do too much. I think they did a pretty good. They did have a good offseason, considering they had the first overall pick, and they did bring a couple players to kind of help Celebrini out. But this is kind of where Chicago was last season. There's just We'll see what happens, and maybe next season they go out and they sign some star power to really maximize Celebrini's second year. The Seattle Kraken also made a splash. They went out and got Brandon Montour. They got Stevenson as well. Those were by far the two biggest signings that they did. There was a lot of controversy on the Montour contract for the amount that he was getting, coming in and on a 7-year, $50 million deal. That was
Jeez.
7.14 cap hit to him. And then they went out and got another former Stanley Cup winner in Stevenson, in which they gave him a 7-year, $43 million contract with a $6.2 million AAV. So that was their two biggest notable signings. I don't think that those contracts are going to age very well considering the ages of those players.
I think they're both very good. I just don't. I think those terms are a little long. I understand. Maybe make the terms, the term limit, make it a little longer so your cap hits a little lower. But boy,
those are
I don't see those aging well.
Those are some really tough contracts to deal with. Montour, I know just by watching him, he's a great defender, but he does make a lot of mistakes in his own defensive zone. Sometimes in the offensive zone, he's not really always there. Chandler Stevenson, good center, but I don't think he's the type of center that is going to lead your team, lead your charge. They do have some good players out there in Seattle. We'll see how this all kind of fits together, but those two contracts, I think, just are not going to age well. St. Louis Blues, quiet on their front. They signed Ryan Suter.
They did get a trade. They got a trade in for they got Alexander Texier from Columbus for a fourth round pick.
Okay, so I mean, but overall their off season, like they haven't brought
very
back
quiet.
Yeah, they haven't brought back Jacob Verana. Their Scandella's not there. They lost Gaudette to Ottawa. They lost Rosen to Colorado. They brought in Suter, which is crazy because now Suter's playing for the third team in as many years and is still being paid by the other two teams in Minnesota and Dallas, which is crazy. He got bought out and still is now he's being paid by three teams this next season, which is going to be interesting. They brought in Kapanen for a 1-year contract, which is going to be interesting. This is, I mean, it's a 1-year Kasperi Kapanen, 1 year, $1 million deal. Maybe he does add a little bit of depth scoring for them, but St. Louis is kind of quiet this offseason. I don't think they really did anything notable other than the Texier trade and the Suter signing, which is crazy. Tampa Bay here, they decided to. Okay, so Tampa Bay. Let me start off by saying this. On one end of the spectrum, Julian Brisebois has basketball size cojones to do what he did to his captain. And then right afterwards, the same money he offered that to Hedman, the same money that he offered to Stamkos. He's like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and give that to Hedman to sign an extension. And then he offered Hedman the captaincy. The amount of dedication and work that Steven Stamkos, he's been the face of that franchise. He took over for Vinny Lecavalier and Martin St. Louis.
Yep.
And it's almost as if they just shafted him and let him go. And their biggest prize of the offseason was getting Jake Gensel.
Do you think I believe they got Cam Atkinson as well.
Cam Atkinson. They also got Cam Atkinson.
I'm a big fan of Cam Atkinson. Do you think maybe they looked at it as like, hey, we don't think that we're going to win the cup. You've been in the league a long time. We don't think we're going to win the cup in the next couple of years. Let's let you go. Find yourself a cup contender.
Their window is still there. They still had a couple of years. I mean, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Steven Stamkos, Hedman. I mean, I forgot. They added Sergachev to Seattle. So they let Sergachev go. So when they made all these moves to free up money, they were supposed to give that to Steven Stamkos. Instead, they went out and got Jake Gensel. Right? Like,
which I think is a huge downgrade.
Massive downgrade. Massive downgrade, which is crazy because here on the NHL website, it's not even showing that Jake Gensel is signed to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I don't think he's actually signed a contract.
He hasn't signed a contract?
I don't believe so.
So where the heck is he then?
I believe I don't know.
No, I could have sworn.
I saw that he went there. I don't know if maybe like the deal wasn't right and he backed out, or maybe they backed out. I don't know.
No, that can't
But
be right.
I've not seen any contracts come from him.
No, that can't be right. Hang on, I'm gonna Google this right now while we're recording this. Like, there's no way. Jake Gensel. There's no way, because if that is the case, then the Tampa Bay Lightning would have done something absolutely outright ridiculous. Yeah, it says that he signed to the. It says he's on the Tampa Bay Lightning, but there's no contract detail. Oh, there it is. 7 years. There it is. Okay, it didn't for some
Oh yeah,
reason.
I remember seeing it now.
It
7 years
it
and a
didn't
dumb
report it on
amount.
the NHL website, which is crazy. So yeah, 7 year deal
It
that
was a dumb
they gave
amount.
him. They gave him a 7 year where's I just read the number, $63 million contract.
Yep, that's what it was. I remember seeing it now, that because it was a stupid amount, and I remember seeing the valuation of it, and was like, that's too much for him.
Yeah,
You
because
could
they
have thrown that
sent
at
out
Stamkos. You
they
could
could have
have thrown
thrown
that at Stamkos.
I agree. They could have honestly thrown that at Stamkos. Now, Julien Brisebois could have said, "Hey, Stamkos, I don't want to be insulting to you, but if you take a pay cut, maybe I can also fit in Jake Gensel," because he sent
Yep.
out Mikhail Sergachev and he sent out Tanner Janot. So he sent
Yep.
out almost $10 million. At the very least, he could have said, "Hey, Stamkos, let's take a pay cut here." So, but by what he did, he kind of slapped him in the face, and realistically, that I don't know how I would feel about it if I was Stamkos. I can't really speak on his behalf, and he's come out and said things where he wanted to be. But now they have Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov, and Jake Gensel, and I think Jake Gensel. I will say this right now. He is one of the players in the NHL I think is overhyped.
I would agree.
He's overhyped.
I think that they have two players on their roster that's overhyped. That's my hot take for the day.
Who's the other player?
Kucherov, man. I think he's an assist factory. I don't think he's really as good as everybody says. I really don't. I think that he has a ton of points just because he likes to pass.
Right.
Good on ya. I don't think that, because I remember seeing it all year last year about everybody saying, "Oh, it's Nikita Kucherov. He's going to break all these records." Great.
You're gonna piss off a lot of fans, by the way.
I don't care. Let him get pissed off. I don't think that he is as good as everybody hypes him up to be. Look up his stats real quick.
I got you. I will look it up right now. I mean, he's been a pretty dominant player in terms of being on Tampa, and that could also be situational. But last season he had 100 assists, 44 goals, for
Congrats.
144
okay,
points.
so of 100 assists, 44 goals.
Yes.
144 points. We're talking like he's some kind of
I don't disagree with you. I mean, throughout his career, he has been an assist machine. He has been a playmaker. He's a playmaker, and question is, does Gensel benefit from Kucherov? Because I don't think Gensel benefits from him. Because Stamkos was a much better finisher.
I don't think Gensel's a goal scorer.
It's going to be
I don't think
interesting
he's
to
an
see.
elite goal scorer.
It's going to be interesting.
His best seasons were Kucherov's best point seasons were 2017, 2018, and last year, with 100, 128, and 144. He had 113 in 22.
Yeah. So I mean,
and in none of those seasons does he crack 50 goals. None of them.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing with Kucherov. He's a playmaker. He has the ability to make plays. Yeah,
that's all he is.
I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not happy about. I'm not even a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, and I'm pissed off for Steven Stamkos.
Yep.
Let's see. What else do they lost Hayden Fleury to Winnipeg, Sergachev to Seattle, Mott to Detroit, Philippe Myers, I should say, to Toronto. Guess what? The Brent Seabrook contract finally comes off the books.
Oh, does it?
Finally comes off the books for them.
Good.
Matt Dumba went to Dallas. Duclair went to New York Islanders. Calvin DeHaan went to Colorado. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Man, I'm not happy with Tampa Bay, and I don't think Gensel is going to be a factor against the Florida Panthers. If I'm going to be completely honest with you. But yeah,
I don't either.
Tampa Bay going from one coast, the south coast with all the sun, to the middle of winter and hockey central Canada, I guess, Toronto. Yep. Toronto has had quite the tumultuous offseason. They have all these trade rumors about Marner leaving, Marner going, Marner wanting to be there, Marner not wanting to be there. And my goodness gracious, after all of that talk, Marner is going to be in Toronto in this upcoming season. And he's going to play out this last year of his contract. And
I'm almost willing to bet he signs another one.
How funny would it be? Because he has a no trade clause. How funny would it be if he goes out and he has an absolutely rock star season and walks away from Toronto, kind of like Johnny Gaudreau.
Yeah.
Kind of like Johnny Gaudreau did from Calgary.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
I think he signs another contract, honestly. I've seen his and Austin Matthews' relationship. They're best friends off the ice. I don't see him leaving that.
But, I mean, the Maple Leafs can't sign him to the similar contract. He wants more money. He wasn't present during the playoffs. He was nowhere to be found. They've had these guys signed. They've had this core signed for a very long time. John Tavares, Nylander, Marner, and Matthews, they have gotten nowhere. Yes, they have phenomenal stats and they have a great season, but in the playoffs, they're nowhere to... Well, Matthews was sick, but Matthews at least played while he was sick. Marner was nowhere to be found. John Tavares' exodus from the New York Islanders, when he was playing for the New York Islanders, was feared. He came to Toronto and he suddenly just disappeared. He's nowhere to be found. They're even talking about stripping him of the captaincy. There's so much drama in Toronto right now that it overshadows that they signed Oliver Ekman-Larsson from Florida. They re-signed Max Domi, who I think was a great fit for the Maple Leafs. They brought in Chris Tanev, which, yes, they needed a defender, but I think he's lost a little bit of his footing. They still have Matt Murray. They signed Matt Murray as a goaltender to be their backup, third string backup. I don't know, because they have Stellaris there. They have Wall that's supposed to be good. So the Matt Murray signing, I'm not sure why they did that. But they didn't lose much either. They left.
Oh, they lost a ton. They lost Tyler Bertuzzi, TJ Brody.
Okay, so TJ Brody was old. They were going to get rid of him anyways, so I don't think that was a loss. Their biggest loss was Tyler Bertuzzi,
and Ilya Lyubushkin.
Lyubushkin, he could be replaced. Ilya Samsonov went to Vegas, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I would have kept Samsonov because I think Samsonov is a far better goaltender than Matt Murray. Yeah. But they do have Anthony Stollers. They're resting on Wall to see if he's going to be good. They're not bringing back Mark Giordano. Max Domi they re-signed. Thank goodness their Kyle Clifford contract is done. Joel Edmondson signed away into LA. Gambrell went to Columbus. Gregor went to Ottawa. Bushing to Dallas. Yeah, so I mean Jake Muslin's gone off the books. Not to mention they just don't have the money to make big acquisitions because of these big name players and their contracts. And I think there was rumors about trading Marner away to Vegas of all teams. They need to free up money. They need to break this core in order for this to work. Yep. I don't see how Toronto is going to move forward. So Toronto this offseason, I think they did an okay job by bringing some complementary pieces, but I'm going to give them a failing grade because I had to listen to months of that Marner trade saga crap and nothing happened.
Yep.
Okay, nothing happened.
A lot of hype. A lot of hype.
A lot
No
of hype.
fire.
And the fact that Brendan Shanahan hasn't been relieved of his duties uh, is insane to me. They brought in Brad Treliving to be the GM, and the interesting sign to their coach, Berube. So we'll see how that shifts the culture of this team. Maybe Brendan Shanahan pulled on the right strings for Toronto and said, "This time when we run it back, it'll be good." Because if they run it back with the new coach, new GM, and these same 4 stars, I'm sorry, the writing should be on the wall for Brendan Shanahan. Like
Yep.
you cannot allow this mediocrity to exist. You can't.
Agree.
We kind of covered a little bit of Utah and some of the. Oh no, we didn't. We covered a few other teams, but Utah coming over from Arizona, RIP Arizona Coyotes. You will forever remain in our hearts as a team that was absolutely pushed by Gary Bettman. Nobody cared for. They found a way to not make it in the desert, which every NHL fan told Gary Bettman that it would not happen.
Exactly.
And now it's not there. But RIP. I love the Phoenix Coyotes. I love their jersey. I love the Kachina jersey. Those were fire jerseys. I wish I had one of those.
Some red ones. Oh, with the red bucket. Oh,
they most notable Utah Hockey Club offseason was drafting Iginla's son to the roster. They brought in a few other players. Cole signs there. Stenlund signs a 4-year contract. Connaughton is there. Agazino. I think Utah is going to be
I put him middle of the tier. Middle tier. They did
middle
get
tier.
Voracek's contract is now expired. I believe he is retired.
Brian Little's contract is gone. Voracek's got to retire.
I believe he is. He's been out. So he suffered a concussion in Columbus 2 or 3 years ago and has not played since.
Yeah. Oh man, to have that money still on the books though.
Yep. I believe it's coming off.
But yeah, I mean, I think Utah will be better than what they were in Arizona. I think now that they have a fan base that's behind them. Not saying that Arizona didn't have a fan base, but Utah I think is more of a hockey market than Arizona was.
I would agree.
So I think Utah is going to be a nice little addition to the.
I think Utah would need to give them a couple of years. Let's see what the ownership does, and let's see kind of the direction that they're trying to go. I know Ryan Smith owns several sports teams. I believe he owns the Jazz. I believe he owns other teams. I can't exactly remember who all he owns, but let's kind of see the direction that they're going to go in. I don't believe that he is shy about spending money.
Speaking of which, I have to Google this right now. Who is their GM? Bill Armstrong. That's who it is. So I saw Bill Armstrong the other day in an interview. This guy looks like Pierce Brosnan.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever saw him. He looks like Pierce Brosnan, and he has such an intimidating like voice to him. I was like, man, this guy, this GM is about to do some damage. So I'll agree with you. I think Utah probably kind of rides it out this first season, see what happens, see what they need to adjust. I think they're going to be aggressive next season when they have a lot more money to play with.
That's kind of where I'm thinking that they go.
Moving on to the Vancouver Canucks. Frankly speaking, Artur Shilovs, they found a gem in the playoffs.
Yep.
Re-signed him. They found a gem. They let Ian Cole go, Casey DeSmith go, Dries is gone, Elias Lindholm is gone, Zadorov is gone. But they did bring in Sprong, they did bring in Desharnais, they did bring in Sherwood, Forbert, and their big signing was Jake DeBrusk. Now, I think that's a very important piece that they added because for some reason, Elias Lindholm just didn't fit in Vancouver with that skill that they had there. But Jake DeBrusk fitting in now. Now their roster has Brock Besser, JT Miller, Elias Peterson, Pedersen, however you want to call it, Jake DeBrusk. I mean, they have some really good offensive weapons over there, and now you add in Sprong.
Well, and don't forget they got a really good scoring defenseman in
Yep.
Quinn Hughes.
And on the back end, they have Hughes, and they re-signed Hronik. They brought him back. So they have a really good team. I actually project Vancouver to be in one of the top 3 spots in the Pacific Division.
I would say they get back to the playoffs at the very least.
Oh, yeah. Definitely they're going to get back to the playoffs for sure. Should we go over the cap circumvention rules before we go over this next team, or?
Yeah, if you want to mention it, yeah.
I'm kidding. We're not going to do that. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, when there's a set cap limit, you don't go over it, and you don't put people on IR and then say, oh my goodness, he's on IR, and magically they appear for round 1 of the playoffs.
Stone.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That to me questionable. The NHL should look at that. Here's my thing. Here's a hot take, okay? If somebody goes on the IR and they are long term, and
they don't get to go in the playoffs.
Like, well, I mean, they should be able to go in the playoffs. I think they should go in the playoffs. But if it's long term, they are not to be ready for the first round.
No.
Like, if, for example, like let's just say the last 2 months of the season.
It needs to be clear. It needs to be medically diagnosed to go on to the long-term IR. And then past that, it needs to be then verified that he is healthy to come back. Yeah. And I would even go verified and then double verified by another independent doctor. Not anybody on the team, not anybody that's related to the GM or anything like that. It needs to be 100%, okay, this doctor and this doctor said he is healthy.
Exactly.
He had this injury in January, but he is now healthy and he can be in the playoffs. If he passes those, yes, let him in.
In addition to that, another rule is if somebody, and I'm going to hold my ground on this, and there's going to be a lot of people that might get mad at this, but if a team goes into the trade deadline 1 month before the trade deadline. Now, I get it. Injuries happen. It's a part of the game. Okay?
Yep.
If a team goes and puts a player, let's say 1 month before the trade deadline, onto LTIR to go get another player, they should be barred from being able to allow that player to play in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day...
second's fine. I think first round, no.
Yeah, they should not be able, because think how different would it have been for Dallas, how different would it have been for Dallas to play Las Vegas without having Mark Stone? Maybe Dallas might have had a little bit more gas in their tank, but Dallas wins the championship for the Western Conference at the end of the season, and their reward is that they have to play Dallas, or they had to play the Vegas Golden Knights, who by the way,
with a freshly rested Stone.
Fresh rested Stone. They acquired Thomas Hertl, which was an absolute surprise. So they need to make some changes to that. And I think, having the medical clearance, second, third opinion, even outside of the NHL, given to the NHL to be able to happen. So Vegas Golden Knights, they did have some additions. They did lose Jonathan Marchessault, which I think was really upsetting, because I think he was really the face of that team. Him and Marc-Andre Fleury led that team for a very, very long time. Yeah. They added some pieces throughout the season. They lost Anthony Mantha, who went to Calgary. Chandler Stevenson is gone. Armadio signed in Ottawa. Martinez is gone to Martinez is gone to Chicago. William Carrier in Carolina. I mean, they did bring in Samsonov. I will see what happens. They still have a pretty good team. But please, Vegas Golden Knights, congratulations, you got your cup. Great. I'm happy for you when you got your cup. Can you stop cheating? Can you stop circumventing the cap? I know there's going to be people say, oh, they're not cheating, they're following the rules. No, the rules need to be adjusted. NHL, please adjust the rules, because that should not happen again. All right, we're on the
I
final
feel like
two.
I feel like that's a pretty widespread opinion too. I feel like
It
everybody
should be.
except for Vegas fans are on board with that needs to be changed.
It does, and kudos to the GM for finding the loophole. I'm not going to knock him. He found something that worked for him, but that
Right.
does need to be changed league wide because even if it was the Edmonton Oilers or the Columbus Blue Jackets, I wouldn't want them to cheat to win. And I'm not saying that
No.
they cheated, but I'm just saying that's what it would look like. All right,
Yep.
final two teams, and then we'll get to the other segments, and we'll keep them super super short. Uh, Washington Capitals, they bring in the defenseman Roy for 6 years. They try to Washington Capitals just brought in some players just to try to make Ovechkin happy. I think Ovechkin this season is just chasing the goals at this point.
I feel like that's what he did last season. I feel like it's what he's going to probably do the next 2 seasons. I don't think he breaks it this year, upcoming season.
I actually think he breaks it this year.
I don't think he does. He's how many away? How many is he away?
Like 42 goals away.
I don't think he does it.
No, I feel like he does it. Washington is kind of a
I
little bit
think he
status
will.
quo. Let's see.
I will say, I think he does in time. I will say that. Yeah, he 100% will break the record in time. Does he do it this season or next season? I don't think he does it this season. I 100% think he does it next season.
Okay, of the Washington Capitals roster, who's their primary goal scorer?
I mean, Obi right now, I guess.
Okay, who's their secondary goal scorer?
Uh, hold on.
Because Backstrom's not there.
Oh, yeah, Backstrom was what I was going to say. I like Milano. Milano gets. Oh, they got that Chitrin too.
Yeah. So they brought in players that move the puck up. And they're gonna all move the puck to Ovechkin. I'm telling
So
you.
you think Ovi's just going to sit in his office?
Yep.
For
Watch the
60 minutes.
Washington Capitals this year. It's literally the Ovi show. It's only him this year because I feel like once he breaks the record, he's done. He's retiring. He's
Oh
not.
yeah,
He's not playing
yeah.
anymore.
I don't see him playing another season past that, unless it's like pad it and like make sure that it never gets broken again. I don't see him playing past that.
Yeah. No. So, I mean, the Capitals. The players they
How
brought in.
how funny would it be if he scores that goal, takes his gloves off, and leaves, and that's just it. Broke it, retires
I
mid
I
game.
I don't think he would do that, but it would be
No, but
hilarious if he
it
did
would be hilarious. He just drops his gloves.
and says, "Forget it. I'm done."
All right, it's been good. It skates off.
So they did let Max Pacioretty walk, so he's free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beyond that, yeah, I think they just brought in players to feed the puck. They brought in players to feed the puck to Ovi. So Ovi's going to be sitting in his office this year. I don't think the Capitals have much more offense beyond that.
Yeah, they're not going to be. They're not going to like make it far or anything. I'll back up with that. I'll say, you know what? I think that's what it'll be. It'll be a get Ovi the record. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters this season.
Yep.
Now the last and final team, the Winnipeg Jets.
This team was so big in size, and they lost so many people.
Some of the losses they had were Brossoit going to Chicago, Capobianco going to Dallas, Colin Delilah going to Edmonton, Brendan Dillon going to the Devils, Jeff Mallett in LA, Sean Monahan to Columbus, Sautner signed in the AHL, Tyler Toffoli going to San Jose, Jeffrey Veal to Boston.
They lost so much of their size. Monahan and Toffoli alone were monsters. They lost some size here.
They really didn't do much. They signed a couple goaltenders, which was interesting to me because they do have Connor Hellebuyck. They got Kakinen and Comrie, which is interesting to me because I don't think they need that. They signed Colin Miller again to a 2-year contract. 1.5 million. I don't know. The Jets didn't really. I feel like the Jets were a loser for this offseason.
Yeah,
They
I would agree.
they were definitely losers this offseason because like their roster doesn't really have too much. I mean, they had a bright spot in Velarde. I think he was a pretty good addition to their roster when they got him from the Kings. But beyond that, beyond uh their goaltender Connor Hellebuyck, I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know how the Winnipeg Jets even made the playoffs last season. I don't know if they make the playoffs this season with that Central Division getting much stronger.
How long is Shifley's contract? Do we know?
Shifley's contract should be a couple more years, I think. Because I know he signed a long-term deal. Let's see. Shifley. Because they have Adam Lowry, Kyle Connor, Nikolai
Yeah, Adam
Ehlers.
Lowry's a monster just in and of itself.
So
Only 3
Shifley's
years.
contract was
3 years.
expected.
Or no, 7 years, 59 million.
He signed a 7-year deal, $59.5 million in 2023. So he just finished the second year of his 7-year deal.
Well, makes sense. He's a monster.
So that
Even
contract takes him.
I love both of them.
That contract takes him till he's 38 years old.
That's not going to age well. It's not going to age well at all.
That's not going to age well. So they've got to make some decisions here. We'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Winnipeg does, because when I look at my projections for the season for where Winnipeg sits, I don't think Winnipeg makes the playoffs this season. They might be a bubble wild card spot. But I mean, how do they pass Colorado, Nashville, or Dallas? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't have them beating any of them.
All right, so we're gonna move on to this next segment here, which I think you guys will like. It is the opening day rosters. Now, we're not gonna go through all 32 teams of the opening day roster because I'm gonna challenge you. Reid, I know that you've done your homework on this. I want you to tell me, now I'm not going to make it easy, which roster is the most surprising roster we should be prepared for, other than Nashville?
That's where I was going to go. I was either going to go Nashville or Carolina.
Carolina, okay. And why do you say Carolina?
They have so many. So Roslovic, Carrier, and Robinson, I don't know how they fit in. I really don't. Roslovic, I think, is a great right winger. Robinson, I think, is a D-list player. I don't know why he's even in their fourth line. I don't understand that. I love them to death, but their roster is their top two lines I can understand.
Right.
I would say like it'd be Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis, Nadeau, Kotkaniemi, and Necas.
That's if they keep Necas.
Yeah. Past that, I have 6 question marks down there. And their bottom two lines, I have 6 question marks. And then defense, the only one that I can sit here and go, you know what? He's going to be good is I have 3 of the 6 that I would say, and that would be Slavin, Burns, and Orlov.
I mean, Sean Walker, adding Sean Walker to the defensive end is actually pretty good, and having Gostisbehere on the third pairing gives a little bit more mobile puck moving. I guess that can compensate for the top or the bottom two lines, where those guys are kind of grinded out players.
Right.
If they lose, if Carolina somehow is unable to keep Martin Necas signed or they trade him, hopefully they get something good. But if they don't keep him, they're in serious trouble offensively.
Yep.
They're in serious
That's
trouble.
kind of where I'm at. The opening day roster completely depending on Natchez. I don't. I think they're going to be great. I do think they're going to be great, but it's just the bottom two lines and Natchez. I don't. It's going to be surprising for me.
All right. You ready for the next difficult question I have for you?
Yes.
What playoff bound team has the worst roster? So you can't choose a lottery pick team because obviously we know the lottery pick teams are going to have pretty harsh rosters. But if you could go through all the playoff teams, which one do you think would have kind of the worst roster makeup or have difficulty throughout the season with their roster?
I'm going to go with. Oh, we said Vancouver is going to be a bubble team, didn't we?
No, I think Vancouver's going to have a. I think for me personally, I think Vancouver's going to be a playoff team. Winnipeg is going to be a bubble team.
I'm going to go with Detroit.
Okay. So
I
Detroit
think they
has.
make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they have a defense. Period. Behind past Cider.
Okay, let's go through it. So their top line is projected to be Dylan Larkin, Raymond, and DeBrincat. The second line is JT Comper, Patrick Kane, and Vladimir Tarasenko. Their third line is Andrew Kopp, Michael Rasmussen, and Jonathan Berggren. Fourth line is Veleno, Fisher, and Mott. I like Andrew Kopp. He's good. Go ahead.
Yep. I think their top two lines, Kopp and Mott, are going to carry that team's offense.
I can agree. Their defense is Ben Sherratt. I always read it Sherriott. I don't know why. Ben Sherratt.
I messed up so many last names.
Moritz Seider. They have older defenseman Jeff Petrie. I always say Petrie, but Petrie. Yeah. Simon Edvinsson, Oli Mata, and Erik Gustafsson. Thus, the Gustafsson edition.
Bottom two lines are going to get cooked.
Yeah.
Cooked. And then Seider. I think he's their pillar for defense. Past that, this is a playoff roster to me, but it is a first round exit playoff.
I could see that. So what do you think they could do to improve this roster? What's one change you would make?
Change it from Little Caesars Arena to anything else.
Facts.
No, I think they just need to. They need to do something with this defense. They got to get Seider some help. I think you got to lose some of the age. Defense is needed in the NHL, and it's not. I just don't see it in Detroit. I just don't.
Okay. Are you ready for another hard question? Well, I'm not going to give you Nashville because Nashville's just too easy. Nashville's just too easy. That's why I'm not giving you Edmonton. Because those are really, really easy. Okay. So let's go with, were there any surprising... let me see. How do I want to phrase this? Of the teams that are in the NHL for the free agency, looking at their opening roster, other than Nashville, Tampa Bay, and Carolina, other than those three teams, which team surprised you with letting one of their players go?
Oh, Boston. Why? Ullmark. I remember seeing the trade come across my phone, and it still blows my mind. I don't understand how you separate that goalie tandem. That you're telling me you have two, best star quality goalies.
They have two star goalies, in my opinion.
There's teams that don't have any, like, even quality goaltenders, and you have 2
Ottawa.
stars. I mean, not now. They have one.
Well, now they have one. But he's not signing there. I'm telling you right now. I promise you, there is going to be another trade. What if let's go crazy here? Let's go crazy for a second. What if Ottawa said, you know what? We'll take Patrick Laine. But
Yes, take him.
If your price is Ullmark, we'll give you Ullmark because he's not signing with us.
Deal.
Okay.
Deal.
I said that only to piss off a few people watching.
That's fine.
Because if you guys are watching this long,
Boston letting go of him, it doesn't make sense. I don't know if it was a cap thing. I don't know if it was a behind the scenes thing where maybe he wasn't as happy as he was portrayed, which I can't see because I saw all of the. That's kind of what I have to think it is cap. But you could cut someone else to keep your star goalie on your roster. You do not break up that combo. Those are two potential, like, if you were to rank goalies in the NHL, they're both top 10. Both of them.
Personally, I would have actually kept Ullmark on Boston, and hot take, I would have not picked up Elias Lindholm. I know they needed a second line center.
Yeah, I would agree.
But you don't go get Elias Lindholm.
I would agree.
You keep that goaltending tandem, and then you work your way through that.
Yep.
Okay, so now I'm going to open the floor to all teams available to you because I know you're going to want to speak on Nashville. I had to hold on to it for a second, but I want to challenge you to also include some other teams if you can. Are there any new acquisitions for their respective teams that are going to be on their opening day roster that you're particularly excited to see?
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for can I find him again? Bertuzzi. I'm really excited for Bertuzzi. I don't know what it is. I love watching him play. I love seeing. I'm really excited for Bertuzzi.
Okay. I think Bertuzzi is going to be a good addition.
I'm very excited to see Macklin Celebrini because my hot take, and this is going to royally piss people off. I think Connor Bedard is over. I don't think he's all that.
Really?
Really. I don't. I think he's too small. I don't think his career is going to be that long.
I'm clipping that.
Go for it.
Oh, no. Are you serious? Have you seen Connor Bedard play?
I'm not saying that he's not stellar with his handling. I'm not saying that he's not stellar with his passing. What I'm saying is the kid is 5'4" and he's got a glass jaw now. I don't think his career is going to hold up. I don't. Personally speaking, Anaheim has one. Chicago doesn't.
I'm going to say...
No, San Jose?
San Jose. I'm going to say this. Paul Kariya, Martin St. Louis are two prime examples of being a small, skilled forward that have had very lengthy careers. Now, I'm not saying Connor Bedard is either one of those players. He's going to be his own.
I understand that, but did either of them have the hype going into the NHL that Connor Bedard had? No.
I mean, Martin St. Louis was pretty hyped when he came in.
As hyped as Connor Bedard was?
Well, I mean, it's a different time. There's a lot more technology, a lot more social media, but the skill set that they had
was claimed to be the next 99.
That was too much hype. I think
that's what I'm saying. You're putting him into. The kid didn't even play a game yet, and they were already saying, "Yep, he's the best in the NHL right now." He's not.
He's definitely not. He's gonna have really good years. I think he's gonna have a long career, but the way I think about it is now, don't hate me. He has two choices on the trajectory of his career at his size and his skill level. he could either be a Martin St. Louis type of player, or he could be a Johnny Gaudreau type of player. And
I see him
now,
going more Johnny Gaudreau.
I mean,
He's quick. He's really good with the puck, but he's overhyped. And I think that if he doesn't have the perfect situation, he will not go anywhere. And I'm sorry, Chicago. I'm not sorry, Chicago fans. Your team's ass. He's not. He's not going to have a Hall of Fame career in Chicago. I'm sorry. I'm not.
I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time for the fans in Chicago?
Yeah, your team's ass. Connor Bedard will not have a Hall of Fame career in Chicago. He needs to go somewhere that has a better team around him. If you want to see that kid at his full potential, put him on a team that can really bring him out. He had, and I will say, even for being hurt and winning Rookie of the Year, he was hurt. I'm not saying he didn't have a great season. I'm saying he's overhyped.
That was surprising that he won Rookie of the Year and he was hurt.
Yeah.
That to me was surprising.
He was hurt. But I think his one-timers are elite. I will say that his one-timers are elite. The way that he actually swings his stick is
he's got an Ovechkin style.
It is
Ovechkin style
gorgeous. And he doesn't my thing with him is that he doesn't have to sit in one spot to have the one-timer.
That's true.
But he is small. The NHL is not small. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's gonna get banged up.
crushed.
And oh my. He took a rogue shoulder and it sidelined him. He had to get his jaw wired shut.
They don't even have they don't really have much protection for him out there.
No. Who are you putting him out there with? Foligno? Great. You're gonna put him out there with Father Time himself. Good job, Chicago.
Yeah, according to this, top line is Bedard, Turbine, and Bertuzzi. Second line is Athanasiou, Hall, and Kurashev. Foligno's on the third line with Jason Dickinson and Ilya Mikheyev. Lucas Reichel, Donato, and Craig Smith, fourth line. Vlasic and Jones on the defense, Kevin Korchinski and Connor Murphy, and then Alec Martinez and TJ Brody. Yeah, I agree. Connor Bedard is Connor Bedard is going to have.
I will say he's great.
Great player,
he's not
but he's going to have a long
career unless he gets if he needs people to surround him that will. I mean, you need an enforcer on the ice with him at all time. There's a reason why in Columbus, Fantilli plays on the ice with Eric Goodbranson all the time. There's a reason.
I 110% agree. Now, you ready for this hot take? That's not really a hot take. But one team I'm excited for to watch is the Tampa Bay Lightning because I want to see the downfall of the Lightning after letting their captain go.
I could see that one.
I'm going to be paying close attention to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Yes, they're skilled forwards, but what they did to Steven Stamkos, I am utterly appalled that they would slap him in the face with they lowballed him the money that he was owed, and then they give that same level of money and extension to Victor Hedman, and then offer Victor Hedman the captaincy not even a week after he was gone. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Tampa Bay does. I'm not going to be rooting for them. I mean, I put them in a projection that goes against everything because I'm just going based off their skill, but I'm going to be rooting against them. Another team that I'm excited to watch this next season is, of course, Nashville, but I really want to see how Dallas handles the strength of the Central Division now with all the additions that have been made, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an exciting season. And I do have some projections. I did post on my YouTube channel, like my own preseason projections. But I'd be interested to hear where you believe some of these teams, where they're going to end up at the end of the season. So we'll go through division by division. Let's go ahead and start with we're just going to go division by division. We're not going to go through the actual conferences. because that can always change. But we'll just go division by division. Let's start off with the Metropolitan Division. That includes the New York Rangers, Hurricanes, Islanders, Capitals, Penguins, Flyers, Devils, Jackets. That was the order of the division last season. Where do you see that order changing, or if there's any changes this year?
Islanders, I see falling. I would say they would be fifth. I would do okay. So let's go from first to we'll do from first to eighth
Okay.
on who I think is going to be where. I think the Rangers are going to be first. I think the Hurricanes will be second. I think the Devils, I think they're going to have a bounce back season. I think they're going to be third. I would put Pittsburgh at 4, Philadelphia at 5, Washington at 6. No, I would put Islanders at 5. Pittsburgh at 6, Washington at 7, Columbus at 8.
So now this is going to surprise you. New York Rangers, Carolina Hurricanes. I'm going to go in order from 1 to 8. Rangers, Hurricanes, Penguins, Capitals, Devils, Islanders, Flyers, Jackets. Yeah, I put Pittsburgh third. Why? Because I feel like if this is Sidney Crosby's last go at it, this is his swan song.
Oh, you're thinking of like a revenge year.
This is like his revenge year. This is like his Mario Lemieux kind of year. He just, this is it. I'm going to show you. This is the last time I take this team. I carry it on my back, and that's why I put the Penguins to be third. Because the reason why I say that is, looking back at last season, the Penguins, I think this season will have Columbus's number.
Oh, yeah.
I think they will have the Flyers number. The Islanders, definitely. Washington is going to be a perimeter team, and they're only going to have really one option to score goals in the Capitals, so they can beat those teams. The Devils might be the only team that they might have trouble with, but the Devils also have to play the other teams. And I think the Capitals...
Do the Hughes brothers stay healthy all year?
If they stay healthy, too.
If the Hughes brothers stay healthy all year, I'll keep them at 3.
I don't think they'll stay healthy. I don't.
I something about those two.
I just don't. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. But I mean, I threw the Penguins third. I think this is the revenge of Sidney Crosby, and I hope to see it. Now, moving on to the Atlantic Division. Last season we had Florida, Boston, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, and Montreal. Where do you see that ending at the end of this season?
I see Boston, Tampa, Florida, Detroit, Toronto, and I'm going to leave the bottom 3.
I'm afraid to even say this, but I have the Leafs at number 1. I have Florida at number 2. I have the Lightning at number 3. I have the Bruins at number 4.
That far.
I have the Red Wings at 5, Sabres 6, Canadiens 7, Ottawa Senators last. Now, the reason why...
I'll flip 7 and 8. I'll do Ottawa and Montreal switched to Ottawa and last.
The reason why I say this, now, let me clarify why I have Boston so low. It's because of that statement, and that the whole losing that goalie tandem, I think, is going to be more hurtful to them than it is adding Lindholm and Zadorov. I think that really hurts them. Tampa Bay, that's where they take advantage of that because they have some scoring. Kucherov can still put up points. They have Braden Point. They still have a really good team. Vasilevsky, I can't deny how good Tampa Bay is. The only missing piece is Stamkos and Sergachev. I think Gensel provides them the offense. They could probably outscore their problems, so that's why I put them there. Florida Panthers, they still have majority of their core there. Yes, they did suffer a few losses, but they still have the majority of their core there. Toronto, the reason why I put them at number 1 is because this is it. It's the put up or shut up year for that 4. For that core group, and if they don't come out with anything less than number 1 in the division, then they're blowing up that team for sure. that team is going to be dismantled in some way, shape, or form. Because that's 6-7 years of these, 6-7 years of these guys, just nothing to show for it.
Right.
So I'm putting them there. There's a lot of expectations, a lot of storylines, so that's why I want it to be a little controversial with how I'm going to see those standings put out. So that's that. Now, we're going to go to the Central Division. Last year, we had the Stars, the Jets, the Avalanche, the Predators, the Blues, the Wild, the Coyotes, and the Blackhawks. This year, I have the Avalanche first, the Predators second, the Stars third, the Utah Hockey Club fourth, the Jets slipped to fifth, the Blues sixth, the Blackhawks above the Minnesota Wild.
I'm gonna go a little different than that. By a little, I mean a lot.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Let's hear
do. I'm gonna do Nashville 1, Dallas
Okay.
2, Colorado 3, Winnipeg 4. I'll do Utah 5, Chicago 6, St. Louis 7, Minnesota 8.
Okay, so we both kind of unanimously agree that Winnipeg is just going to be last. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah.
All right. Last but certainly not least, that Pacific Division. As you guys know, I am putting number one of that division, none other than my Oilers. Second, no, actually, let me go through last year's. It was Canucks, Oilers, Kings, Knights, Flames, Kraken, Ducks, and Sharks. This year, I think it's going to be Oilers, Knights, Canucks, Kraken, Kings, Flames, Ducks, Sharks. So I think Vancouver slips to third, and Seattle could be potentially on that bubble.
I'm gonna do I think LA is too old.
But they have that veteran leadership. LA is still better than Calgary. I think LA is better than Calgary. LA is definitely going to be better than San Jose, and they're better than Anaheim.
Yeah. I'll do Edmonton 1, Vancouver 2, Vegas 3, LA 4, Calgary 5, Seattle 6, San Jose 7, Anaheim 8.
Wow. Okay. I would have thought that Anaheim would be a little bit better than San Jose, but who knows? We're gonna see what happens.
I don't see it. I really don't. The only thing that I could see that they even have going for them is they signed Zegras to an inflated contract.
Who knows? They might make a deal in the offseason or during the season and bring
Well,
up.
and San Jose did just get pretty decent players. Because you got to remember, they did get
Tyler Toffoli and
Macklin Celebrini.
Yeah, I'm still putting San Jose last.
Zetterlund's in there.
I'm putting San Jose last because I think that the young players of Anaheim are better than what San Jose has right now. Not to mention Zegras has more experience than Celebrini is coming into something that he doesn't even know. He's going to be learning.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with mine. I think San Jose leapfrogs over Anaheim.
I think Celebrini's going to have a Lafreniere year. Remember when Lafreniere came in? He was just hot shot, but he had a quiet year, and then only till the second or third year did he actually pick it up. I think that's the same thing that's going to happen here with Matt Celebrini.
Okay.
All the hype, but don't get too overhyped about these number one draft picks, okay? Unless their name is Connor McDavid.
I've liked Celebrini since last year.
Well, we're gonna see what happens. But I think that wraps it up. I think we had a pretty good show today. So I want to thank all the fans that came out and watched the show. If you guys have watched for the 2-hour segment that we've had here, and you've stuck around and you've been faithful watchers and followers. I appreciate that. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and drop some comments in the chat about anything you heard here today. Of course, everything is fan originated. We are just GMs giving you our opinions. Fantasy GMs. We can even start a fantasy league if you guys want to. But feel free to always share your opinions. You guys can catch us on this channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep that notification bell on so that way you always get constant updates and information about the NHL and the news that's happening. Until next time, I'm signing out. Reid, I will catch you later.
Signing out as well.
Peace.